Hey there! Team Fortress 2 has perhaps the most intricate and complex history of any game. With almost 18 years under its belt and a guaranteed spot in the Steam charts at pretty much any time, it's no wonder that an iceberg as filled as this one exists, with over 450 entries covering everything you need to know, plus some entries of my own. It's not surprising that this video is over 3 hours long. And also, there's a ton of special guests from the community that I've invited to help me take on this iceberg. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Shout out to Reddit user BaconOfDominaton for this iceberg. Level 1. Normal. Most of this is super surface level knowledge, but you may enjoy some yapping about this. I mean, who clicks on a 3-hour video anyways? The 9 classes. TF2 is a class-based team shooter, meaning that depending on the character, aka class you choose, you will have different abilities, which you can usually broadly infer from the name of the class alone. The 9 classes are separated into 3 categories. The offense one includes the scout, soldier and pyro, the defense one includes the demo man, heavy and engineer, and the support one includes the medic, sniper and spy. That being said, I don't think anyone really puts much value on the categories, you just pick what you like. All 9 classes are absolutely iconic in video game culture, and while there are many rumors and ideas for a 10th class floating around, that was never officially a thing. More on that later down the iceberg though. Casual mode. This is the most popular official game mode of TF2. You simply play on a map with different players and try and win. No extra rules or stakes or anything. The actual casual mode was only added in the Meet Your Match update in 2016, which is a very controversial update that we'll get to later on the iceberg. Get ready to hear that one a lot. Many people, however, still prefer loading up a community server like it was done before the Meet Your Match update. Rocket jumping. TF2 did not invent rocket jumping, but it most certainly helped popularize it. Rocket jumping is the act of shooting a rocket below yourself while you're jumping, which propels you up into the sky. This can be used to cross ledges, or in the case of TF2, there are even specific weapons that gain benefits from rocket jumping. Rocket jumping is integral to getting good at playing soldier in TF2. Rocket jumping is so popular that there are even community maps that have specialized courses for rocket jumping. In most cases, even more advanced techniques are used. Rocket jumping is a skill with a very high skill ceiling. Displate. This segment is sponsored by Displate. I swear this relates, just listen for a second. They sell a bunch of high quality TF2 magnetic posters for your room. They're high quality in every aspect, feature officially licensed designs of pretty much every franchise, and are super easy and satisfying to install. They also make for great last minute gifts thanks to fast shipping. So if any of that sounds interesting, check out the link in the description to support me at no extra cost of your own. More than likely there's currently a sale. Thank you. Back to the regular entries. Achievement items. There are a certain number of achievement items you earn by gaining achievements of TF2, and in rare cases in other games. On screen you're seeing all of them. Without trickery, these cannot be traded or sold. And neither can any item that was crafted using them. There's also a bunch of items that you gain in TF2 by completing achievements in other games, a lot of which are unavailable now though. Team Fortress Classic. Team Fortress Classic is effectively part 1.5 of the Team Fortress series. Team Fortress started as a mod for Quake. The team behind the mod started working on Team Fortress 2 based on the Quake 2 engine immediately after the mod's success. Valve then joined the equation and ported Team Fortress to be a Half-Life 1 mod instead and released it as Team Fortress Classic. Given the nature of it being the same franchise, it's overall very similar to TF2. So anyone familiar with TF2 should have an easy time getting into Team Fortress Classic as well. The graphics might be a bit jarring, though the Gold Source charm can definitely not be denied either. Gabe Newell. Gabe is one of the founders of Valve, the company that went on to create Steam, all main Half-Lives, the Portals, the Left 4 Deads, most Counter-Strikes, Dota 2, Deadlock and more. And of course, TF2. Gabe is also a legendary figure in TF2 and all of gaming. It basically boils down to him being seen as the god of gaming, king of the hill. This is a game mode in TF2 and many other games as well. In TF2's iteration you capture a control point placed in the middle of a usually symmetrical map. Doing so will cause a timer to run down. The goal is to have your timer run down before the one of the other team does. Taunts. TF2 is one of the earliest iterations of video games including taunts, especially with movements added to them. While this started as actual taunts meant to be directed at a kill cam and were included with the character animations already anyways, it later evolved to paid ones that could even be done together with other people, to eventually turning into whatever dance or funny movement you can imagine. The way TF2 did taunts has now become a staple in pretty much any multiplayer game, specifically most shooters. Meet the classes. Valve made animated shorts for each of the classes that are meant to introduce them. There is one for each class, and one for the sandwich. They're a great watch if you've never watched them for some reason. Demo Night. TF2 allows for equipping different weapons. The Demo Man specifically has a bunch of weapons that cater to him being able to remove all of his weapons in favor of running around with a melee weapon, specifically swords and axes, and a shield. This basically created a subclass referred to as Demo Knight, though specific rules as to what constitutes a Demo Knight and what doesn't varies from person to person. Medieval mode. This mode heavily plays into the Demo Knight's abilities, and it's honestly one of the most fun times you can have in TF2 if you ask me. One team attacks a castle and one protects it. A typical attack/defend game mode. However, only medieval themed weapons are allowed, so nothing that resembles a modern day firearm. This mostly results in people playing Demo Knight and Sniper with the Huntsman bow. TF2's economy. TF2 has an item system, one that links directly to the player, meaning the player can find weapon drops in a match and use those in others. There are a bunch of different items, including weapons, hats, crates, keys, taunts, and a ton of other miscellaneous items, and then a ton of variants of all of those. On top of this, you are able to trade them and sell them on the Steam marketplace, which has led to an entire economy forming around this. Valve has teams that focus entirely on keeping the economy of the games healthy. It is also fueled by a whole bunch of gambling disguised as loot boxes, which is the most scummy thing Valve does. But outside of that, it's very interesting to see. There are items that have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Exclamation mark gift items and exclamation mark achievements. There are TF2 community servers that allow you to enter commands to receive all the necessary achievements for earning the achievement items mentioned previously, at least the ones you can earn directly in TF2. An exclamation point is a popular way of entering commands in chats. Gift items and achievements are very popular commands. Map stamps. As a way to support community maps, you may purchase map stamps. All proceeds of these, minus tax, go towards the person that created the map. On top of that, the player gets some benefits. After purchasing the first stamp, you get this hat. If you're wearing it on a map for which you've bought a stamp, it will have a special stamp effect to it. On top of that, if you're playing on say 2-Fort Invasion and have bought 10 stamps off that map, each time you taunt on the map, your next 10 steps will then have a map stamp appear at your feet. On top of that, each day the person that has bought the most stamps will receive the Philateller hat. A hat only one person can have at a time and only for one day, unless you are the person who has bought the most stamps for multiple days in a row. This is one of 3 hats that gets moved around players daily, which we'll get to later. Hat drops. Cosmetics are king in TF2, and sometimes you'll just get one randomly. Receiving an item is usually referred to as a drop. In my 1.4k hours of TF2, I have maybe received like 4 to 5 random hat drops, just to let you know how rare this is. Friendlies. Many times you'll find players of opposite teams just hanging out together in a match. You call these people friendlies. It's usually frowned upon to try and kill them. Most just let them chill. You may spot a friendly by them always crouching. It gets even easier if it's a heavy and he's holding a healing weapon like the sandwich. Competitive mode. This is the official ranked mode of TF2. It's basically the same as casual though, outside from some game modes and thus maps not being included. Most people that play TF2 do it casually, so this mode isn't all that popular. Teleporting bread. In the 15-minute TF2 short expiration date, it is revealed that the teleportation done through the engineer's teleporter spreads tumors in bread. The mercenaries then come to the conclusion that they'll all be dead soon as they've been using the same teleporters. I heavily recommend watching this short on your own. A chance of bread appearing at teleportation was added to TF2 after this as a reference to this short. There are 9 kinds of bread, 1 for each class. Female merc mods. TF2 can be modded, especially with stuff like reskins, and thus, a reskin for each of the classes exists that turns them into women. Here's all of them on screen. There are worse versions than the ones I'm showing you, but I'll leave it to Pyrocynical to show you those. TF2 Gmodders. I'm pretty sure this is simply referring to the fact that TF2 assets exist in Gmod, and they're widely used. There are tons of people making animations of TF2 characters in Gmod, which are about as popular as the game itself is. The Man Family. TF2 is a comic series that is used to explain a bunch of lore in the game, and sometimes to tease upcoming updates. The Man Family are a set of pivotal characters in the comics. Most important to know is that the 2 main brothers, Blue Tark Man and Redmond Man, are the ones behind Blue and Red, and fund the mercenaries we play as. There is way too much lore for me to squish into here, and some of it would spoil the TF2 comics, so go read them for more info. The last and final one only released a few months ago. C-tapping. This refers to an advanced move in rocket jumping. The goal is to use the upwards momentum of releasing the crouch button to propel yourself upwards even more when rocket jumping. At the same time, going down into a full crouch would make for a horrible jump, so you only tap the crouch button before firing your rocket. It's very hard to time perfectly. Arena mode. This is one of the lesser played modes of TF2, mostly because it isn't even selectable anymore in casual mode. In this mode, the only goal is to kill all enemies. After a certain amount of time, a control point is unlocked that takes long to capture. This is to avoid enemies simply hiding somewhere. SV Pure. This is the server setting that prevents mods. It is used in official Valve servers. Most community servers disable it though. Capture the Flag. A popular mode in not only TF2 but all games. You have to steal something from the enemy base and bring it back to yours. Spy is Scout's dad. The Spy and Scout have a relationship that is rather rough most of the time, but they do help each other out when it comes down to it. It gives off a strict father and rebel son vibe, and the Spy is known to have sexual relations with the Scout's mother, at least the one of the blue team. The comics also often play into this. And one can say that it was pretty much all but confirmed that the spy is the scout's dad in TF2 comic number 6. But it was never truly 100% confirmed. And a few months ago, the last comic ever released and did not give any further confirmation, so we may never know. Earbuds. Earbuds are a cosmetic item that was rewarded to people playing TF2 on macOS. This promotion only lasted for about a month, making these a rare collectible. For a long time, these used to be a main currency in the TF2 economy when it came to high-tier trading. Oftentimes, rare items were priced as being worth a certain amount of buds. The economy has changed since, and now only sits at about $15 when it used to be somewhere around $40 and up for the longest time. Crafting metals. Another important item in the trading community. Or well, at least used to be. TF2 features a crafting system that is mainly used to smelt weapons to scrap, merge scrap up to the highest tier of refined metal, mostly referred to as Rev, and then either use that for trading or to craft hats. Crafting hats is pretty unpopular these days though. The value of metals has gone down over time, because there are few ways to actually get rid of them, and thus the supply has only been rising. Keys, which are worth around $2, used to be worth around 6 to 8 Rev for a long time. These days they're at 53 Rev. Talk about inflation. Meaning by buying and selling one key for metal, you can craft about 17 hats. Man, if that was the case back when I was a kid playing TF2, that would have been insane. The Orange Box. Valve sold a bundle of Portal 1, Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, and Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and TF2 called the Orange Box in 2007. This was back when TF2 wasn't free to play. Many people got their start into TF2 thanks to this bundle, and you can still buy it on Steam. It only has Half-Life 2, which costs $10, and it costs $20 as a box, so I'm not sure what Valve is doing here. The Valve Complete Pack is the more popular option these days. Bill's Hat. Same as the earbuds, this used to be considered a currency in TF2 trading. The item originates from Left 4 Dead's Bill, and you could acquire it by pre-purchasing Left 4 Dead 2. This once more makes it a rare collectible. These days it's only valued at about $7, and it's no longer used as a currency. Troller Trimping. Trimping is the act of hitting a ledge at high speeds, causing you to launch up into the air. The Troller is a subclass of TF2 that mainly kills people using the Market Gardener, a melee that does crits when used while rocket jumping. So this refers to the act of doing some flat rocket jumps, hitting a ledge, flying up into the air and then trying to get a kill using the Market Gardener. Special Delivery. A TF2 game mode. The only map that uses it is called Doomsday. In this map, your goal is to first steal a briefcase, bring it to a point and then capture it, which takes super long. This is a very chaotic but fun game mode. Unfortunately, even after 2 hours of queuing I didn't find a match. Payload. In this game mode you push a cart. Each point you capture during this path rewards extra time to do so. The other team tries to stop you from doing so. This is easily one of the most popular multiplayer modes in gaming. Maps with this mode usually feature a bomb that Blue is pushing and destroys a building owned by Red. Training mode. TF2 has 2 training modes, one simply being to play with bots, and the other one is more for training cost. This training cost features its own map, but is only completed for a total of 4 classes, which is kind of a shame. It's a neat little experience. Poker Night at the Inventory. A now delisted game that features characters of many different franchises, including TF2. By playing this game and earning achievements, you could earn TF2 items. These are all the items you could earn. The game has since been removed from Steam due to licenses running out. Man, I remember playing this all the way back and grinding to get all those items. Though in total I only have 7 hours, which to young me felt like a week of grinding. Big Kill and Max's Severed Head. Another 2 promotional items that you could earn by purchasing Sam and Max The Devil's Playhouse on Steam before the 26th of April 2010. The items are priced at about $40 and $70 respectively these days. TF2 memes. TF2 is perhaps the most memes game on the internet, ranging back to basically all eras of memes online. This basically requires its own separate video or hell, video series. Is there a TF2 meme iceberg? The GEWP. GEWP stands for Gibbous Engineer Wildlife Protectors, a group started by TF2 YouTuber Sin back in 2015. The goal being to protect engineers who are presumably rather new to the game, which is usually easily recognized by people wearing the Gibbous hat, which is an all-class hat you get from a very easy achievement. The group was insanely popular thanks to the popularity of Sin's videos. The group eventually started being disliked because it was mainly just children doing it and it was probably cringe. I was a child myself at the time, so I couldn't tell you. Eventually, the Steam group of GEWP got hacked and caused the group to lose a huge fraction of their members. And at the same time, Sin stopped uploading. This caused the death of the movement. Save TF2. From about 2019 to 2024, TF2 was plagued by bots. Bots that existed with the sole purpose of disrupting gameplay and destroying other people's fun. They would also spam the chat with offensive stuff. They would switch names every second to that of another players, so they could avoid being kicked. And most importantly, made playing the game completely impossible. There was no lobby without a bot. Valve seemingly didn't care at all. They implemented some fixes here and there to combat it, but it never changed anything at all. In 2022, the SafeTF2 hashtag trended, which was the people's way of trying to get Valve's attention. Gaming outlets covered the situation and Valve did eventually respond on Twitter, claiming they're looking into it and working on a fix. The most infamous quote of which is, "TF2 community, we hear you." Nothing happened for 2 more years. People were getting SafeTF2 training again. Eventually though, they pushed an update in summer of 2024 that actually managed to pretty much eradicate all the bots. As of the release of this video, TF2 is still playable. Let's hope the bots never return. Capture points. This is what a capture point looks like in TF2. By standing on it, you capture it. Sniper is from New Zealand. The sniper was raised in the outback of Australia, but he is originally from New Zealand. TF2 comics. Already mentioned before, the TF2 comics tell a story using the mercs of TF2. The comics are pretty good. Miss Pauling. Miss Pauling is a prevalent character in the TF2 comics and the expiration date cinematic. She's also the voice you'll hear announcing TF2 contracts. Miss Pauling is the assistant of the administrator, otherwise known as the announcer in TF2. We don't know a lot about her, other than her loyalty to the administrator and her disinterest in the scout, who is very romantically interested in her, at least up to the release of the last comic. Manco. You see their logo everywhere, especially when you're opening crates or buying stuff from the in-game store. In lore, after the Mann brothers died and their father Zephania was long gone, control of the company fell to Saxon Hale, a very muscular Australian guy. Manco is the source of all the weapons, hats and well, everything the mercs use to bash each other with. Australium. Australium is the magic metal that seems to power pretty much every insane thing in the TF2 universe. It's the reason why the administrator and Mann brothers lived for so long, among other things. It also shows up in a bunch of item names and descriptions, including specific Australian weapons. A lot of the game's lore revolves around this metal. Poopy Joe. In TF2 lore, Poopy Joe was the first American monkey knot. The rocket crashed shortly after launch though due to Manco sabotaging it, which they did to steal the Australian fuel source. There are a bunch of more pieces to find surrounding the lore of Poopy Joe. All that I have to say about it is, rest in peace Poopy Joe, a true hero. Types of spy stabs. With a spy there is only the regular stab with the knife and a backstab. While that is true, there are more stab terms that were coined by the community, the overarching term being trick stabs. The stair stab is a classic one, where you jump over someone and hit a backstab. There's also the face stab, which is just a funny term for just not even going for a backstab at all. In reality there are way too many to name. There are videos about trick stabs out there. I can recommend this one by C. Ravioli. Scout in Fall Guys. The Scout is in Fall Guys. Haunted Metal Scrap. This is a crafting item you receive by killing the Horseless Headless Horseman. You can use them to craft one of 3 hats, or to craft the Horseless Headless Horseman's Head Taker, a reskin of the Eyelander weapon of the Demo Man. Per account you can only receive one singular Haunted Metal Scrap, so you'll have to choose between either one of the 3 hats or the weapon. Scream Fortress. Every year around Halloween, TF2 releases a Scream Fortress update. These updates usually consist of a bunch of new Halloween maps, some new cosmetics and taunts, and Halloween contracts returning. In my opinion, this is the most fun time of the year to play TF2. Source Filmmaker. This is the tool used to make animated films in the Source engine. It was used for all the official TF2 shots, and still gets used by many in the community to this day. Though there's also no denying that it is pretty outdated these days. Still, if you wanna get into animating, this isn't the worst way to start. By now we also have Source 2 Filmmaker. Item qualities. TF2 items are separated into specific qualities. These qualities are purely cosmetic, in most cases changing only the color of the name of the item. Here's all the qualities and the items they include. Normal is only used for items that you have from the start of the game, meaning the default weapons. Unique refers to most items, including regular hats, weapons, and most misc items like keys and crates. Vintage is one of the more limited qualities. Every item that was dropped before the Manconomy update got turned into a vintage item. The Manconomy update introduced trading, microtransactions, and the Manco store. Alongside this update, Steam added the Steam Wallet. There are genuine items that are usually received through promotional crossovers with other IPs. Strange refers to weapons, hats and taunts that count specific stats, mainly kills. Though through the use of strange parts you can add more statistics that are to be tracked. Unusual items have special effects. These are some of the most sought after and rarest items. The haunted quality is used for Halloween items, though usually there was only a certain chance to receive haunted versions of Halloween items during all the past Scream Fortress events. Collector's quality is achieved by combining a total of 200 of the same item using chemistry sets. Decorated items refers to all grades of war paints you can get, which include civilian grade, freelance grade, mercenary grade, commando grade, assassin grade, and elite grade. By the way, it should be obvious to everyone that this is just straight up stolen from CSGO after Valve had huge success with that game's economy. Decorated items are also separated by specific levels of wear, which are exactly copied from Counter-Strike. The community quality is super rare, as these are specifically granted by Valve to people who made contributions to TF2. For example, people who help organize events, create maps, or help fix bugs. In a similar vein, the self-made quality uses the same color and is also super rare. Every time a community member has an item approved and added to the game, the player gets their own item in a self-made quality. Items of both the previous qualities also have a particle effect attached to them, and used to have a hidden 10% damage boost that has since been removed. The last and most rare quality of them all is the Valve quality. A genuine Valve item can only be created by Valve themselves, and usually have insane stats. There are a few clips online of Valve employees using their weapons in regular matches, it's pretty hilarious. Also, item qualities are what was used to rank this Iceberg. Man vs Machine. My personal favorite game mode of TF2, and honestly the best PvE mode there has ever been if you ask me. In this mode, you and 5 other players fight against waves of robot versions of the TF2 mercs. These robots drop money that you can use to upgrade your weapons. The most fun aspect of it is the fact that the robots have special attributes. There are tons of variations of mercs and also fun boss enemies. As I said, to me this is the most polished PvE mode there has ever been. And there are community members who are still expanding it to this day with new maps, missions and custom robots. It's also this mode where you can receive Australian weapons among other items, if played in the man-up mode on official Valve servers. To be specific, you need to purchase Tour of Duty tickets to have a chance of an Australian drop. These tickets will cost you just about $1. Voice actors. The voices of TF2 are as integral to the characters as gambling is to Valve. The voice actors of the TF2 characters are well known, and really embrace their characters. In recent years they have often done videos where they cosplay as their respective characters, or reenact popular TF2 videos in real life. A lot of this was done thanks to TF2 YouTuber Shock. Rick May was the voice of the soldier. He sadly passed away in April of 2020 due to COVID. Valve has a tendency to keep inviting the same voice actors, which is why you'll find that a lot of TF2 voice actors can also be found in other games of theirs. Australian weapons. These are the weapons you can get in MVM. They are very rare drops. However, as this mod has been out for about 10 years now, there is a huge surplus of most of them that makes most of them worth less than $100 these days. Golden Frying Pan. The rarest of all Australian weapons is the Golden Pan, which continues to be among the most sought after items in TF2. Considering the Golden Pan Steam group has 260 members and some of them may have multiple, it can be estimated that in about 10 years of MVM somewhere around 300 have been dropped. When a Golden Pan gets dropped, everyone playing TF2 will receive a notification that it happened too. In my about 50 tours I have never received even one Australian, by the way. Saxon Hale. As mentioned earlier, this guy is the owner of Manco and is insanely strong. It inspired a TF2 community game mode called Versus Saxon Hale, where one person randomly is chosen to be Saxon Hale and has to kill everyone else. Of course he's given a lot of powers and a ton of health to do so. I say community game mode, but it eventually became an official casual game mode in the 2023 summer update. Playing Versus Saxon Hale are some of my most fond memories of playing TF2. Sniper's cheek scar. The sniper in TF2 has a scar on his cheek, which he got from the spy slicing him, as seen in the Meet the Spy video. The fun thing about this is that the sniper didn't have this scar before this video released. TF2 used to do it like no one else, man, I swear. The Crate Depression. The TF2 economy took a nosedive in 2019. Valve had somehow introduced a bug in 2019 where if you opened a certain old crates, they'd always give you an unusual item. The value of a ton of unusuals tanked overnight. Valve stopped crate opening very quickly, and afterwards made every hat except for the first one opened by each account during this time untradeable. Players were also able to get full refunds for purchased keys and crates if they were unhappy with the untradeable hats. The market stabilized again afterwards, though you can probably still find a lasting dip in unusual prices from this day. TF2 tubers. This refers to TF2 YouTubers. There are a lot of them out there. If you're watching this, there's a high chance you've also watched a video made by Uncle Dane, Soundsmith, Lazy Purple, Skyman, and a ton more that are out there. And hey, Skyman even appears in this video, so you have at least watched one video with her. SV cheats. TF2 features a console that allows you to change a bunch of configurations of the game, including both client and server side. A huge bunch of them require cheats to be enabled though, the command for that being svcheats1. This will allow you to do most of the fun commands, and it's obviously not a command you can enter if you're not the server owner. Community servers. Back before the Meet Your Match update, there was only this server browser you could use to navigate TF2 servers. There were some Valve official servers, but most people didn't really care if they joined a Valve server or not. Community servers oftentimes were just more fun, having some fun commands you can enter or other gimmicks. It also allowed for custom maps and game modes to be played. Community servers still exist and are still very fun. You haven't experienced TF2 if you've never played community servers. Community custom game modes. As mentioned, there are custom game modes. Just to name a few: Freak Fortress 2, which is basically Versus Saxon Hale but with more varied enemies, Death Run, where you try and survive an obstacle course, surf maps, zombie modes, the list goes on forever. Marasmus. Marasmus is a boss fight you fight in the Halloween map Koth Lakeside event. He's probably the most creative boss fight of them all, having a bunch of different attacks. In the lore, Marasmus is 6,000 years old and was the soldier's roommate and occasional enemy. which is reflected by some soldier lines. Defeating Marasmus, using the teleporter to Skull Island, and entering the teleporter inside the skull will give you this achievement, which gives you the same hat that Marasmus wears. Decal Tool. This miscellaneous item allows you to add images to certain weapons and cosmetics. There are no filters in its uploading, which is worrying to say the least. Uploading any bad imagery will get you banned off Steam though, so I don't recommend trying anything silly. You can also disable custom decals in the advanced options. Halloween restricted items. Now here's one of the worst features of TF2. Most of the Halloween themed cosmetics you get are restricted to be used during Halloween or a full moon. Why Valve thinks this is a good idea is beyond me. Updates. TF2 has had a lot of updates throughout the years. These days, most of the updates are either bug fixes or community-driven updates, like adding new community maps and cosmetics every summer, Halloween and Christmas. Though this year in 2025 we're also getting an MVM update, which is nice. Team Fortress 2 Beta. Like any game, Team Fortress 2 went through a beta phase. There was also the option to opt into a beta branch of TF2 that was used to test new items, though this feature was discontinued only 3 years after its introduction in 2010. Dueling. By using a dueling minigame item that comes at the cost of $1, you can challenge another player to a duel. Whoever killed or assisted in killing the other person the most amount of times wins. There are also public leaderboards of players who have won the most duels. It can only be suspected that this is heavily pushed though, given you can just have a friend get themselves killed by you. The person with the most duel wins in the last 24 hours will receive the dueler hat for 1 day. Similar to the map stamp hat. Trading. TF2 allows you to trade items with other players. I think this has become obvious by now. Spy Crab. To spy crab is the act of equipping the disguise kit, crouching and looking up, which makes you look like a crab. The spy crab became so popular that it eventually ended up getting its own rare taunt and a few cosmetics inspired by it. Item Test. This is the name of a map used for testing purposes, which is actually a modified version of Blue Spawn from the map George. By entering the item test command, you can test items and also save configurations. Killstreak kits. Killstreak fabricators and killstreak kits are a more common drop from playing MVM. Applying them to weapons adds a counter to the player's HUD that counts your killstreak. Getting to high enough levels gives the weapon and the player model certain particle effects based on the killstreak kit that was used. Red and Blue. The endless conflict of the Red and Blue team actually has a reason that is explained in the comics. Red stands for Reliable Excavation Demolition, and Blue stands for Builders League United. These companies are owned by Redmond and Blutarch Man respectively, who are constantly fighting over the land their father left behind. The mercenaries you play as are hired by one side or the other. Rick May's death. As previously explained, the voice actor of the soldier died in 2020. In May of that year, a soldier statue on top of a grave for Rick May was added to a lot of maps for the duration of the month. A permanent tribute was also added to Granary in August of that year, featuring the severed heads from the Meet the Soldier video and the grave once more. Fat Scout. Fat Scout is the name of an alternative playstyle for the heavy, in which you only use your secondary. This basically turns you to a slower scout with more HP. This is not really seen as a serious playstyle though, and is mostly just done for fun. Doesn't mean that people aren't trying though. And there certainly are some legit skilled Fat Scout players out there. Golden Wrenches. Not to be confused with the Australium wrench. The Golden Wrench is also made of Australium, but that's not relevant. The Golden Wrench was given out to a total of 100 players at random during the release of the Engineer update in 2010. Crafting an item had a small chance of giving you a golden wrench at random. However, someone figured out that the random distribution of these golden wrenches worked on a timer, so it wasn't really a totally fair random giveaway. Killing people with the golden wrench plays a unique sound effect and turns them into gold, and the engineer will say one of a few unique voice lines. Today, only a total of 87 ones remain, which I'll get to later down the Iceberg. Payload Race. This is a TF2 game mode in which both teams have to push a payload in a race of who gets to blow up whatever the target is first. This game mode is super fun and it's the game mode of one of TF2's most popular maps, Hightower, Skybox. If you've ever tried flying around maps in TF2 using noclip, you may find that a lot of the surrounding scenery is not really there and instead exists as a small shrunken down version somewhere outside the map that is then projected around the map. This is used by TF2 and every other Source game, and it saves on a bunch of resources. Burning Flames Team Captain. For a long time, this was considered the best unusual hat, the king of all unusuals. While the legendary status still pertains, there are more expensive items by now. Huntsman Fire Arrows. The Huntsman is a bow the sniper can use, and it has a very unique property where if you hold the tip into fire, the arrow will light on fire and actually inflame enemies if they're hit. This is mostly used in the medieval mode map, but arrows can also be ignited by pyros. Level 2. Unique. The entries in this tier are more rare. If you haven't been in the community for a while, it is likely that you don't know about most of these. Also, if you made it this far, consider subscribing. Thank you. Manpower. Manpower is a very unique game mode of TF2. The main difference to usual game modes is that everyone gets a grappling hook and that random power-ups spawn. These power-ups range from extra damage, speed, health and a whole lot more. Meat Fortress. There's a VR game called Hot Dogs, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. In an update that released in 2019, they collaborated with Valve to essentially add TF2 into that game. To some degree at least. You get to play as each of the classes with stock weapons in a team deathmatch setting. Invisible Pomson Projectile. The Pomson used to be able to penetrate buildings and friendlies, though this caused the projectile to become invisible, which makes dodging the projectiles a tad bit harder to say the least, so this was removed. Double Unusual Chance Rate. During the 2016 Halloween event, the chance of getting an unusual was doubled across all crates.
TF2 box in Left 4 Dead. Hey, it's me, Lunafy. This entry is nice and simple. On a table in the apartments in Left 4 Dead 1's No Mercy campaign, you can see some chocolate cereal. Delicious. On the back of said box of cereal, you can see some promotion for TF2. Apparently, there is even a free figurine inside the cereal box. Goddamn. This, among some other details, fuel theories that in the Half-Life universe, the Left 4 Dead series is kind of a horror movie series, hence the posters. TF2 is a game series, hence the very unique graphics when compared to Valve's other IPs, and the more goofy tone. And Half-Life 2 is just the real world, where people would have been enjoying these franchises before the 7-hour war. In reality, this is probably just a little bit of fun. But do you think this theory holds up? Also, as a bonus fact, on that very same table, you can find a copy of The Terminal, that is the newspaper from Half-Life 2. Now, this is unlikely to even be an Easter egg in my book. I think this is just another recycled asset.
Hats in Meet the Spy. At the time Meet the Spy released, hats had not yet been added to the game, nor announced. This video was actually the first teaser of hats. We can see the Happy's football helmet cosmetic in the background of one shot, and see the red sniper wearing the trophy belt hat. Pastime. Pastime was added in 2016 in the Meet Your Match update. It's a game mode that involves players passing around a ball called Jack. You have to take the ball and score it in the opposing team's goal. It's nowhere near as popular as the regular game modes, doesn't mean it isn't fun though. Tom Jones. Tom Jones is a real-life musician. You have probably heard of this song of his before. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. He also happens to be referenced in TF2 on a few occasions, mostly in the comics, where he also dies twice. Mind you, he's still alive as of the making of this video, and probably unaware of the TF2 comics. The fact that he's in the comics is most likely due to the It's Not Unusual song, which became an in-joke in the community before he ever appeared in the comics. Dota 2 hats. There's 3 hats in TF2 that were awarded to participants of the Gamescom 2011 Dota 2 International Championship, all of which are based on Dota 2 characters. Miss Pauling in Meet the Medic. In 2 shots of Meet the Medic, you can see a figure watching the medic perform his surgery on the heavy. It's pretty unmistakable that this is using Miss Pauling's model. Why she's there is not known though. Demopan. The Demopan is a meme character in the TF2 community, and it's more than simply playing Demoman with the pan. You have to play the Demoman with the pan, the Charge and Targe, the Dangerous 2 glasses you only got by playing Poker Night at the inventory, and the Bounty Hat that you could only get by taking part in the 2010 Steam Great Treasure Hunt. The main grenade launcher remains unknown. Part of the meme is the name of this Demoman, Stout Shaco for 2 Refined, which is a trade offer, though theoretically it's unclear if this person is buying or selling. The origin of the Demopan is quite ironic. He first appeared in this exact Reddit post in 2011, at which point cosmetics were still pretty new. It was meant to be a commentary on how TF2 has lost its style, and how it's all about cosmetics and trading now. It turned into a meme however, and the Demopan is perhaps one of the best original characters to come out of the TF2 community. Madcap. Speaking of original characters, Madcap is the 10th class added to TF2 in 2008. He's somewhat similar to the Scout in looks, but he got removed at some point afterwards again. Now he's mostly scrubbed off the internet. Nah, just kidding. But what I just did is what Madcap is about. The TF2 subreddit tried to mass gaslight the community into believing there used to be a 10th class called Madcap, based on a very old set of Scout cosmetics that was submitted to the workshop when it was still pretty new. So no, Madcap was never real. Or was he?
T-pose. This is a very common thing in video games, like it's not some unexplained phenomenon. When making character models, you need some kind of basic pose to use as a reference when animating or rigging, and the T-pose became the de facto one. Even though technically the pose that Valve uses would be called the A-pose, but T-pose is just much more famous, so it's referred to that anyway. Though it does get funny when there's animation glitches and the character model just defaults to the T-pose.
Tacobot. TacoBot is a website on which man vs machine sweats register people they like and don't like so they can instantly kick them, which can be good for things like cheaters. But it's also just used for people new to the game or those who make a singular mistake. People that take MVM very seriously are known to be toxic as hell most of the time. So this is expected. Seriously, if you want to have fun in MVM, then leave as soon as you see someone that has tours in the hundreds or even thousands. Random crits. Random crits are perhaps the most controversial game mechanic of TF2. It's discussed in TF2 forums like philosophers discuss the meaning of life. In TF2, every shot you take has a chance of being a crit. It's a small chance most of the time, by which I mean that it dynamically adjusts depending on how you play. And contrary to what you may believe, it actually gives you more crits if you perform well in order to keep that high in a sense. There's videos that take a way deeper look at how random crits work and what speaks for and against them. Personally, I enjoy random mechanics in a casual game mode, but would personally also dislike this mechanic if I was to play TF2 competitively. The official TF2 competitive mode comes with no random crits, so in my eyes, this mechanic is fine. Benny. Benny is widely regarded to be the best TF2 player there is. He's part of the Froyo Tech team, which is also considered the best TF2 team there is. They have won more 6v6 matches than any other team in history. He exclusively streams TF2 and has over 30,000 hours in it. He recently turned 32, which equals about 280,000 hours time being alive. If we subtract 90,000 hours, which makes for about 8 hours of sleep per day, we arrive at 190,000 hours of time spent awake. He has spent about 1/6 of his life playing TF2. If we are to only start counting from the point TF2 released, and then also subtract sleep, this guy has spent just about 1/3 of his life since TF2 released simply playing TF2. If you wanna watch a god at TF2, I suggest watching his streams. He's currently maining Soldier, but has previously also been one of the best at Demoman and Scout, and basically every other class as well. TF2 merchandise. Surprisingly, there has never been a lot of TF2 merchandise, which goes for most things Valve. There used to be a store that sold shirts, mousepads, masks, prints, and other items of TF2 merch, but it closed in 2023. Outside of that, there have been other smaller merch drops like TF2 vinyls, which is still available now. If you look hard enough, you will find a lot of TF2 merchandise not made by Valve. If you don't care about authenticity, it's worth picking up, especially as long as Valve is not selling anything official. Imagine owning the IP of some of the most iconic game characters of all time, if not of media as a whole, and not selling merch of them. Meet the Sandwich. This is an official parody video of the Meet the series, in which you simply watch the heavy sandwich sit in the fridge while you hear a conversation and fight happening in the room outside. Definitely a worthy part of the Meet the series. TF2 Freak Show. The TF2 Freak Show wiki catalogs every single TF2 freak, which are the boss enemies of the Freak Fortress game mode that usually originate from TF2 fan animations. There are way too many to fit into this video, but there are other videos explaining most of them out there. The Freak Fortress game mode is 10 out of 10 by the way. The Forza Nature was made in Portugal. When the Forza Nature released with the Scout update, there was this poster accompanying its release. It mentions that the weapon was made in Portugal. Valve quality weapons. I mentioned this earlier. Weapons of the Valve tier that only employees at Valve get that are stupidly OP. Highlander. Highlander used to be the standard rule set for competitive matches, and is still used today for most major leagues. It's 9v9 matches that most controversially are limited to have a maximum of 1 class per team. Most majors make slight changes to the rules.
CP Cloak. This, as the name suggests, is a control point map. However, if you actually look at it, it's very bizarre and no one fully knows what the point of this map was. It's very unfinished, like there's a lot of things missing here that a normal map would have. There's no ambient sounds, no bot support. You can even see the skybox being filled with cubes, and all the characters just staring at you menacingly. Also, apparently the singular control point on this map takes 50 seconds to capture, which is abnormally long compared to most maps. Kinda weird. But to be fair, this map was probably just used for some kind of testing, although I have no idea what you could be testing with this map.
Past Brickyard Secret Room. This is a map of the Pastime game mode. It's most notable for including a pretty complicated Easter egg achievement, which also rewards the player with 2 hats. It involves having multiple players standing on specific spots. It can, however, also be done solo using bots and bot commands, which involves using cheats, but as long as you disable cheats again before completing it, you will earn the achievement. Saluting the Fallen. As it stands currently, Saluting the Fallen is the latest soundtrack added to TF2, which happened in 2020. It was added as a tribute to Rick May, voice actor of the Soldier, who sadly passed away from COVID in April 2020 after many other health complications. During the month of May 2020, this track played in the main menu for the whole month alongside the Soldier class image being displayed. Rest in peace, Rick May. Gen 1 to 3 unusual effects. This is referring to the original TF2 unusual effects that were dropped from older crates. Nowadays we get about 3 series of unusual effects each year that are all tied to specific crates. You are thus more and more unlikely to see some of the OG ones. If you open older crates though, you are guaranteed to get one with an old effect, developer commentary. Just like most games released by Valve, TF2 features a commentary mode. This allows you to listen to pre-recorded messages of the developers talking about TF2's development using physical speech bubbles on the map. There's developer commentary on Gravel Pit, Hydro and Well. These notes are also where this legendary quote comes from.
Welcome to Team Fortress 2. After 9 years in development, hopefully it will have been worth the wait.
Nope.avi. Nope.avi is an absolute masterpiece, made by none other than this guy. It's 9 seconds long and depicts the engineer just running around doing his daily thing, before suddenly his hard hat seems to levitate and try to escape. But fear not, the engineer is not phased. Like any good engineer, he simply says, "Nope," and then extends his neck to catch the hard hat with his head. Absolute cinema. This has to be at least 12 years old, and these days it seems like a lot of shorts are going for the same vibe. I'd also highly recommend this guy's other work. A lot of it is extremely creepy, but it's all pretty damn funny in my opinion. I remember watching all of these as a kid and getting all kinds of weird feelings from them, not knowing they were all from one guy. As one commenter says, these 9 seconds of video have more cultural impact than the entirety of Overwatch. Oh.
Steam profile avatars. You have probably seen people with these avatars before. They're a bit more rare now, but back then, like every second TF2 player had them. They're also used for memes now sometimes. Engineer gaming. Before AI, there was this concept called sentence mixing. You took pieces of other voice lines to create new sentences or even new words. It sounds pretty funny due to how differently pronounced the sentences usually are. There was one mix that was just the engineer going, "Engineer gaming." It became this dry humor joke to just repeat this everywhere. What followed were gaming voice lines of most TF2 characters, which includes people asking the voice actors to say it on streams or Fiverr. Here's a compilation of them all.
Scout gaming. Soldier gaming.
Demo gaming. Heavy gaming.
Engineer gaming. Medic gaming.
Sniper gaming. Spy gaming.
HL2.exe. At its very core, TF2 is a mod of Half-Life 2. Thus, for a long time, the TF2 task itself was still called HL2.exe. This was only changed in 2024, 17 years after TF2's original release. Class and weapon tokens. To complete certain crafting recipes, specifically those for weapons or hats, you may require class and weapon tokens. These are created by smelting together 3 weapons of the specific class you wish to have a token for, or 3 weapons of the specific weapon slot you wish to have a token for. In reality, you will probably never come across any of them as a regular TF2 player.
Pyro's gender. Pyro, being the only class whose face is hidden and voice muffled, makes everything about them a mystery. Who or what Pyro is and their gender has been hotly wondered in the TF2 community ever since the game's debut. We know full names and histories of most mercs, but we still don't even know if Pyro even has teeth, skin, or perhaps even actual female features, like kneecaps. Rest assured, there's tons of clues we can draw upon to come to our own conclusions, so we too can correctly gender someone who goes whenever they want a medic. Pyro is most often referred to as a he by other mercs and Miss Pauline in official material, or sometimes by no pronouns at all, like when Heavy calls Pyro that thing. The other characters don't 100% know their gender either. Soldier questions if Pyro is a girl in the comics, and the only photo we have of Pyro maskless has their face obscured by arson. For more comic ambiguity, we've got the time Team Red met the TF Classic mercs, of which every merc was a man except for that team's version of Pyro. In Meet the Pyro, in their delusion of murdering the blue team, we hear a song that has lyrics about magic in a young girl's heart. And if you go by old-timey gender norms, that kinda makes it seem like Pyro's a girl. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that, especially when it's a stand-in for murder. And there's a lot of random taunts, weapon details, and characteristics that make people debate Pyro's gender a ton. As a gender expert myself, I'd say they're clearly a...
Tip of the Hats. This is the name of what used to be a yearly charity event that was hosted by the competitive TF2 scene. The last event happened in 2021, where they announced a restructuring of future events. It has yet to return. 15.ai. This was a website that sprung up during the initial rise of AI voices that allowed you to create TF2 text-to-speech voice lines using the characters' voices. It was primitive compared to today's technology, but still surprisingly good for a free text-to-speech website. It eventually went into maintenance for like 2 years before returning as an MLP voice generator. In this time, hundreds of more AI voice websites sprung up to replace 15.ai. Most of the time they're paid though. Also, don't use AI voices. Sentence mixing is 1000 times cooler. Gaben's Banhammer. Back in the day, there was a joke weapon idea floating around that some also believed to be true. The Banhammer. This mostly spawned from a TF2 website called TF2 Items, including this in Gabe Newell's Steam inventory. This was purely a gag on the website's part. There is also a joke demonstration video of it, which shows it banning anyone that gets killed by it. But yeah, not real. Probably. The 3 legendary hats. I mentioned one of these earlier. There are 3 hats that are awarded to a new person each day. Those being the person that within the last 24 hours bought the most stamps, the person that won the most duels, and the person that gave the most gifts. You only get to keep this for as long as you are top of the field in all those categories, meaning only one of each exists at all times. And meaning you lose it again after a day, unless you manage to be first place in that category again. Item description. Most items that aren't stock weapons feature a description by default. In most cases, this is simply the stats of the weapon or a short description of a hat. With the use of a description tag, you can add custom descriptions to items or replace them if they already have one. These will have quotation marks placed around them so they're able to be differentiated. Some items have some great descriptions, like the Eulapole cable. A sober person would throw it. It's really worth it to read some of them from time to time. Track Terrorizer description. Speaking of descriptions, the Track Terrorizer is a cosmetic item for the Scout, which description reads, for a brief stint in high school, Scout joined the track team in one of his many schemes to pick up girls. He was kicked off the team after 3 days when everyone realized he was 23 years old and also not enrolled in the school. Which, kinda paints Scout to be a pedophile? For any non-Americans who aren't sure, you graduate high school just about when you turn 18. The best explanation I saw on this was that he was actually trying to pick up the moms of the track team members. Which sounds more Scout-like. Monoculus. The Monoculus is a boss fight in some of TF2's Halloween maps. Defeating it for the first time gives you the Monoculus cosmetic. The Golden Charity. I told you about golden wrenches earlier and how there's only 87 left. As a part of the Golden Charity event in support of Child's Play, 14 of these very limited 100 golden wrenches were deleted by players. But that would make for 86 wrenches. It's 87 now because the player Volkno won a charity auction for Child's Play, which earned them the golden wrench number 101 and one of every other game item. So after this, there should be a total of 87 remaining ones. I should note that according to the TF2 fandom wiki, that uses no source, there are only 78 left. But again, no source on that. International voice actors. TF2 got translated to tons of languages, not only in text but also the voice lines. For audio, there's English, Russian, French, Spanish and German voice lines. Here's some German ones.
Danke, besten Dank. Danke. Dankeschön.
Sadly, these were never updated as the game went along, so if you're playing the game in any language other than English today, you'll be met with a lot of English lines anyway. Most basic voice commands, callouts and administrator lines remain translated though, so you should get by even if you don't speak English. If you're seeing this, you likely do speak English though, so this shouldn't be an issue anyway. Non-melee weapons in medieval mode. In reality, the only thing medieval mode bans are any weapons that resemble modern firearms or any kind of technology, outside of the spy's cloak device and disguise kit. Pretty much anything else is fine. The scout has his strings and the guillotine. The soldier and demo man can use their boots and backpacks. The heavy can use his snacks. The medic can use one of the only primaries in this game mode, with his crusader's crossbow. And the sniper gets to use his bows, backpacks, but not Jarati. This has a lore reason we'll get to later. Old soda popper hype. The soda popper used to have different stats. I remember this change happening a few years ago, 11 years ago. Oh god. Ignoring most its other stats, currently on every hit you build hype on a separate meter. Once it's full, you can activate it to allow for up to 5 double jumps. This used to be different, where hype built by the scout running around instead of doing damage. It also used to give you mini crits instead of the extra jumps thingy. The weapon was pretty broken and thus got changed.
Scout is named after Germa 985. This one may seem like a joke at first, because Germa's community has always joked about him being the Scout from TF2 because of his accent and his looks. But seriously, the TF2 Scout really was named after the iconic evil mastermind, Germa 985. In a Valve News Network interview with Nathan Vetterlein, that's the Scout's voice actor, it was revealed that because Valve was supposed to have a TF2 show on Adult Swim, they needed to come up with a name. So Nathan gave him the honorary name of Jeremy, as a reference to the guy that likes to laugh at car crashes. Another opportunity that Valve let slip through their fingers. So as it is now, this reveal of the Scout's name is found in the comics instead.
Monoculus is Demo Man's missing eye. Yep, I love TF2's lore. Hat of undeniable wealth and respect. I mentioned the Bounty Hat cosmetic earlier, the one that is used for Demo Pan. That cosmetic is actually only the first unlock of that Steam event in 2011. The next step was the Treasure Hat, then followed by the Hat of Undeniable Wealth and Respect. These would always replace the previous hat upon unlock. though they would always include a style of the previous hat. The final one was unlocked by completing every single one of the 28 objectives in the Steam event, which was obviously not something a ton of people did. If we go by backpack.tf stats, there only exists about 290 of these hats, at least in public inventories. They're currently selling for about $1,000. Community and self-made items. Community items are granted to people that make significant, valuable contributions to the TF2 community, like helping to organize events. Self-made items are granted to people who manage to get a cosmetic or any kind of item into the game, including self-made crates, keys and bundle packs to players who got an item featured in them. Both of these item qualities color the item's name in a light green and have the unusual effect Community Sparkle. Self-made items also have an additional "I made this" original description. These items can only be given out by Valve and are usually not able to be traded, sold or crafted. There are some old self-made keys though that are still going around. One was sold on Steam in 2023 for over $1,600. Saxies. The Saxy Awards used to be a yearly competition for TF2 SFMs. The winners received a strange Saxy Award, an all-class melee weapon that turns people into ghosts. And yes, in case you're wondering, it is usable in medieval mode. Promo items. A lot of promo items were made in TF2's time. Most are unavailable these days. You usually got these by pre-ordering or playing another game on Steam.
The TF2 console ports. In 2007, day one with PC, Valve released TF2 on the Xbox 360 and is a fascinating thing to look back on to this day because Valve was notorious for not caring about their console ports post-launch. By 2009, TF2 looked entirely different than it originally did. On the PC. On console, it was the same. The PS3 version was even worse. Gabe Newell has famously said words before. He also said some specific words about the PlayStation 3, calling it a waste of everyone's time. EA's UK division made the PS3 version, sporting lots of weird bugs and differences in all different games, with the most apparent one being that Demo Man has more ammo in the PS3 version. The servers for the PS3 version have been shut down, but the 360 servers are still up and kinda active. So if you want to have a way to play these bizarre, almost perfectly preserved day one versions of TF2, you can.
Gentleman's Service Medal. This item was awarded to the first 11,111 people who visited a secret path of the TF2 website, the description of which was one of the winners of the Head Describing Contest of 2010. One of many, I might add. Horseless Headless Horseman. Another boss fight of TF2. This one always picks a random target to be it, and will then chase that player down until either the player or the horseman itself is dead. There's a few more exceptions, but overall it's a very deadly boss. Special main menu screens. There were quite a few occasions that added special backgrounds to the TF2 menu, like the Saxy Awards, new updates or some Christmas events. Chemistry sets. These are tool items that would drop randomly when they were added in 2013. They require the player to craft together a bunch of items to receive a reward. The reward depends on the variant of chemistry set, of which there were two. The usual chemistry set variant and the collector's chemistry sets. The normal ones would give you a strangifier of a number of cosmetics and only required a few items. The collector's one would require 200 of the same item to create a collector's quality item of that kind, making collector's items some of the most valuable in TF2, depending on what item it is. New Zealand is underwater. Yeah, this is a canon fact in the story. They canonically sunk their own country to isolate themselves. They also explore this place in the comics using a submarine. More on that later. Scrapped rideable bomb cart. There exists a model in the TF2 files that shows a rideable bomb cart. This isn't really that noteworthy anymore since Frontier features a similar thing now, and so do certain community maps. Especially noteworthy is the map Citadel, which features a tank for a cart on which engineers can build on and the demo man can play stickies on.
Something special for someone special. If you've ever wanted to be romantic in the shooty hat gambling game, you can with this $100 ring that can be renamed to whatever you choose it to be. Giving it to another player alerts every single server and player currently online. And yeah, this can be super easily abused to say very hilarious things like, oh, I don't want to say that. I'm legally an actual crazy person, I can't say that.
Unusualifiers. These were added in the Scream Fortress 2016 update and are able to unusualify taunts. They sometimes drop when opening any case. Pyroland. Pyroland is a concept introduced in the Meet the Pyro video, where it's explained that the Pyro sees everything as a fun cartoon world filled with joy and love, and that Pyro isn't actually an evil maniac, at least from the Pyro's perspective. Valve added the Pyrovision goggles to the game alongside this, which allow you to play TF2 in the way the Pyro sees it. This changes gifs to toys, adds fun cartoony sound effects everywhere, and replaces flames with rainbows. It also pitches up voices and a lot more things. Some maps even change if you wear the goggles. There are a few more items that allow you to enter Pyroland as well, including some weapons for Pyro and cosmetics that include one for the Heavy. The lengths Valve used to go to for a joke are insane.
Painted cow manglers. Hey, it's Mitch from Lambda Generation here, and I'm present too in this video. So get this. When the Cow Mangler 5000 was added for the Soldier all the way back on July 20th, 2011, in the Dr. Grordboard's Victory Pack update, you were briefly able to paint the weapon. This is something that you weren't supposed to be able to do. Oops. Valve was quick to patch this mistake out of the game, issuing an update for Team Fortress 2 pretty much the same day that fixed it. But in the brief period of time that you could paint it, people definitely took advantage of it. What made painting the Cow Mangler 5000 so interesting is that not only could you paint the base color of the weapon model itself, but at the time you could also change the color of the laser projectile. Pretty neat. Now, how did Valve make such a mistake, making a weapon that was supposed to be unpaintable paintable? Well, apparently for this update, Valve updated the item schema. That is a file that documents all the existing items in the game and the attributes that those items have. And Valve accidentally gave the Cow Mangler 5000 the paintable attribute. Yeah, I think a mistake like that is quickly made, to be honest, especially if you have a lot of items to add. According to Steam user Deploy a Dispenser here on the TF2 Steam discussion forums, there used to be at least 27 painted cow manglers going about in 2013, but nowadays this number might be significantly lower. So if you ever see someone in your game with a painted Cow Mangler 5000, consider yourself very lucky.
Scout in Half-Life Alyx. Hi, my name is Radiation Hazard and I am here to tell you a very important fact. Half-Life Alyx has 2 hidden scout figurines. The first one is located in Russell's lab. Later in the game, a blue scout figurine can be found on this shelf. Funnily enough, Valve has also decided to write scout on a dumpster on the first Trainyard map.
Weapon reskins. An item is referred to as a reskin if it's got the same stats and functionality as a previous existing item. For example, there's the normal scattergun for the scout, the festive scattergun, 8 bot killer scatterguns, the Australian scattergun, and the festivized scattergun, which is different from the original festive scattergun. And then there's also a bajillion war paints released in cases for the scattergun since. All these weapons don't differ in stats at all. Item qualities don't matter though. One wouldn't call a theoretical collector scattergun a reskin. That's just a collector scattergun. On top of this, a ton of actual different items that are reskins exist as well. For example, the Big Kill for the Spy as a reskin for the revolver, a bunch of different melee weapons with no unique stats, the Wonga Prick that's a reskin of Your Eternal Reward. A lot more of these exist, oftentimes they're promotional weapons, and these are usually what people refer to when speaking of reskins. The Civilian. This is an actual scrapped class, one that was still included in Team Fortress Classic as the VIP. The VIP game mode is very unique in that it's essentially a payload game mode, but the payload is a player playing the Civilian. They can barely defend themselves. This is the goal of the other players, while the other team tries to assassinate him. He also makes a brief cameo in Meet the Sniper. The Civilian class is still found in the files. It is however basically unusable and uses the Scout's model. We have since received a game mode with a new class in a sense, the Versus Saxon Hale mode, making Saxon Hale the closest thing to a 10th class we've ever gotten. Maybe one day we'll see the Civilian arrive in TF2 as well. Level 3. Strange. Even though this is only level 3 out of 10, there's already a lot in here that I never heard about myself in my 1.4k hours of TF2. So, buckle up. Territorial Control. This is a game mode only used on a singular map that nobody really plays. TC Hydro. It's a worse version of Attack Defend and TF2 as a whole. The map is also pretty bad. I read the wiki text like 5 times and still didn't understand what this game mode is supposed to be. And nobody plays this anyway, so who cares? What is worth noting is that this was a flagship map of TF2. Valve really expected players to like this. Red MVM robots. These exist in the files. You may have discovered them while playing around with the robot ragdolls in Gmod and selecting the other skin. There is some cut content later down the Iceberg that may offer potential uses for them. For now, they go unused. TF2 Classic. This is a mod for TF2 that tries to make the game feel like the 2008 to 2009 era of TF2. It also adds a lot of content on top of that. For example, the civilian we talked about earlier alongside the VIP game mode. Some cut weapons are brought back, and there are now a total of 4 teams instead of 2. Green and yellow are added. It's actually going to release on Steam this year if everything goes right, and it's an insanely impressive piece of work. They even have their own animations for new updates. Bing Soy. Bing Soy might be the most popular meme character of TF2, at least judging by the amount of views Almaxo's video on the topic got. Bing Soy is a player Almaxo came across randomly, and it turned into a very mysterious story that managed to get over 12 million views on YouTube as of the release of this video. If you wanna learn more, go watch this video. Mercenary Grade Corpse Carrier. This refers to this Halloween restricted cosmetic. The mercenary grade quality refers to its rank within the case. This is a thing Valve only added later down the line in TF2's history, probably due to the success it has in the Counter-Strike economy. Blue items are more common, and as you move closer to red, it gets more rare. And then of course there's a chance for any of these items to be unusual. And then there's also a chance for them to be strange. And just to go on the tangent, with Warpaints there's also the factor of item quality, where it ranges from Factory New to Battle Scarred. To unbox a strange, unusual Factory New Elite grade item, you'd need to hit the 0.9 chance of hitting an Elite skin, the 1 in 10 chance of it hitting a strange, the 1% chance of hitting an unusual, and then a 12.7% chance of it being Factory New. In total, this equals about a 0.0001% chance. Just about a 1 in a million. 6 years ago someone did actually unbox one of these, and it was estimated to be worth anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. We love gambling. We don't actually, just so we're clear. But back to the Corpse Carrier. When it released, it wasn't Halloween restricted, even though this might be the most clear case of something that should be Halloween restricted ever, since snipers are bound to be confused by what they're looking at. And so, Valve made it Halloween restricted in a patch, removed it from the regular case drops, and instead made it a random chance as a bonus drop whenever you opened that case. People that previously owned one received a new random item from the case. Due to it being a random bonus drop, it could no longer be received in a strange quality, which is why the price for strange Corpse Carriers skyrocketed after this update. It has been going down since though. It also no longer has the mercenary grade rank, and instead of being a cosmetic, it now says that it's a good Samaritan.
Companies in the TF universe. The Gravel Wars are essentially a corporate family war that took physical shape. While it is a war between two brothers, they're specifically fighting it under their companies Red and Blue. Given that this war is a top priority for both companies, it's not surprising that each one has numerous subsidiary and shell companies attached. Some examples of blue companies are Blue Streak Beer, Blue Co., Blue Freight and Shipping, Goldstream Fuel Coal, Nile Archeo, and Gilded Gold. Some examples of red companies are Alliance Towing, Brown Nugget Prospecting, Cornwell, Husky Acres, Red Shed, and of course, Red Bread. These miscellaneous companies also extend to other major companies in the TF2 universe. For instance, Manco has an extensive list of subsidiaries, including companies like Manco Monkey Nautics, Men Schnapps, and Monco, which I probably pronounced horrendously wrong. Many of these companies simply exist as fronts for more nefarious means. A lot of them are really just labels and logos to house rocket silos and weaponry. If I were to go over every company in the TF2 universe, we'd be here all day. But if you do want to hear more about the theory behind these fronts, I've got a couple of old videos over on my channel discussing this theory, along with how they relate to many maps.
Bolt Equalizer. You may be aware of 2 separate weapons for the soldier, the Equalizer and the Escape Plan. Both act similarly. The Equalizer gives a damage boost, while the Escape Plan gives you a speed boost. Originally, both these buffs used to just be the Equalizer. It was stupid OP, and so it was eventually decided to split the functionality into 2 weapons. Everyone that owned the Equalizer also got a free Escape Plan when it was added. PizzaBot. I talked about TacoBot earlier. PizzaBot was the response to this, and they aimed to not kick any players that were on the TacoBot list. This included cheaters, however. Someone needs to make a group that only kicks cheaters and nothing else. I don't know, BurgerBot or something. Coaching. Back in the day, you were able to coach players in TF2. This granted you a limited spectator mode that allowed you to give hints to the person you were coaching. Not like anybody uses anyways, but in case you're wondering, it barely works anymore. Drunken Fool. I mentioned earlier how the secret behind golden wrench drops was figured out rather quickly, and that it was happening on a timer. This was figured out by a person called Drunken Fool. Drunken Fool would count down the timer till a golden wrench drop was due on a server, which basically guaranteed someone on the server would get it. For this offense, Drunken Fool and one of the people who used Drunken Fool's method called Derek were both VAC banned. This caused quite a bit of controversy since there wasn't any actual hacking going on. The protests died down rather quickly. After 2 years, Valve reserved Drunken Fool's ban, likely because they hired him. That's right, Drunken Fool got hired by Valve after the whole ordeal. Derek remains VAC banned to this day. Poor Derek, man. Strange bacon grease. In 2013, a salvaged Manco supply crate was added. These are very rare drops, usually containing a bunch of strange weapons, making those specific strange weapons very rare and valuable. This specific crate, Crate 50, had a chance to drop strange bacon grease. This could be used to strangify the frying pan, which was notable since the frying pan was a promo item, and also remains a meme item to this day because it's so insanely loud. This was also the first strangifier to ever be added in a sense. Strangifiers. I talked about these earlier with the chemistry sets. This is an item that allows you to make weapons strange. This was before war paints were added that have a rather high chance of also being strange, and thus strange weapons are more common now.
PL Cactus Canyon. PL Cactus Canyon is a Valve-made 2-stage payload map that was released in beta on July 8, 2014 in the Manco Beta Maps Early Access program. When it was released, it had beta written all over it. The map looked very unfinished with lots of details missing, geometry felt really blocky still, some areas were straight up incomplete, and it was fairly unbalanced for both teams. The map being 2 stages seems pretty basic, but there used to be an additional stage between the first and final stage, making it a 3-stage payload map. However, that stage was removed in the August 27, 2014 patch, possibly because Valve just didn't vibe with it. The last update this map received was back in September 2014, and it is in the present day no longer playable through normal means. However, you can still access it by creating a server or by typing map PL Cactus Canyon in the developer console. Quick fun fact about this map. When it first released, it actually didn't have a single cactus, which is weird for a map called Cactus Canyon, don't you think? After people complained about this, Valve did finally end up adding some cactuses in here and there. There's even one wearing a hat and glasses, and one placed at the side of a train. I command the cactus's willpower to grow here, of all places.
Sketchek's bequest and Sketchek's fake disease. Sketchek is the name of a TF2 YouTuber who died of a terminal illness. He was beloved in the community, and thus, Valve even added a reference to him in the stats of the extinguisher, which also references his last video before passing. This stat is a speed boost granted upon kills. Heartwarming story, except the guy didn't die. He faked it for views. This line in the description has since been removed. The stats remain though. Apparently there's enough people that simply didn't care enough that the guy did this to where he still had quite a good YouTube career about 3 years after his death, which is just unimaginable to me. It's so insanely disrespectful to anyone who has actually lost someone to terminal illness. Engineers 11 hard science PhDs. Canonically, the engineer has 11 hard science PhDs, whatever that may mean. Probably all relating to physics, machine building, and other general science though.
Meet the medic taunt bug in water. This is a bug that can be easily replicated by using the meet the medic taunt when standing in water. Duh. It's pretty much just a loud ass splash sound that is apparently so loud it can be heard on the other side of the map. It's definitely just because the huge bundle of Archimedes that spawns at your feet towards the end of the taunt, perfectly timed with the sound.
TF2 ARGs. ARG refers to alternate reality game, which are interactive events that have some portion take place in the real world and may be influenced by participants. TF2 has done this a few times, the most notable one being the MVM one in my opinion. They teased the idea of MVM in the game for a long time, including secret out-of-bounds rooms featuring images of robots. Player destruction. In this game mode you pick up points dropped by enemy players and then drop them off at a certain point. This changes depending on the map. My favorite one is Selbian, where you drop off buckets of fish for seals. Crafting numbers. The first 100 crafted of a certain item will have a number put at the end of its name. As long as no new items are added and put into the crafting system, this is obviously impossible to get anymore. Interestingly enough, the servers do actually continue storing numbers for items above the 100 mark. So if you ever crafted an item, you can use websites to see the exact craft number. Manco store is a scam. This is just true. The Manco store overprices items to an insane amount. Anyone who has a bit of experience stays away from it outside of some misc items, like keys for example, for which the Manco store sets the price. You can buy cosmetics for 12 euros that cost like 2 ref on trading sites, which equals about 6 cents. This probably isn't even the most outrageous overpriced item in the store. but this example alone is overvalued by 200 times. Background 01. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 version of TF2 feature this background map in the main menu. You can load this up in the PC version too, but it's otherwise unused. Dev test. This map is found in the source filmmaker files. It's a dev texture basic version of 2Fort, but of the Team Fortress Classic version of the map. Robin Walker's rocket launcher. This is one of the Valve quality weapons. Robin Walker being a Valve developer. It has the unusual effect Flying Bits and does plus 1,009,900% damage, plus 109,900% clip size, plus 75% faster firing speed, on hit plus 250 health, on kill 10 seconds of 100% critical chance, plus 100% faster move speed on wearer, plus 0% projectile speed. Kinda seems balanced to be honest. I wonder what's more annoying, fighting against Robin Walker's rocket launcher or a pyro.
Netherlands and Belgium restrictions. Team Fortress 2 players in the Netherlands and Belgium may be in for a bit of a surprise when they try to use keys to open Manco supply crates. Because due to regulations from the Dutch Kansspelautoriteit, aka the Gambling Authority, and the Belgium Kansspelcommissie, aka the Gaming Commission, introduced around 2018, these kinds of loot boxes are now actually classified as gambling and are no longer allowed in games as they can be easily accessed by children. Folks from this region trying to use a key to open a Manco supply crate will be faced with a screen telling them they cannot do this. And this counts for other Valve games using the loot box model as well, like CSGO or CS2. It's unknown at this time if this restriction will ever be lifted in these countries, so I guess the only thing to do for now is to just sell these crates on the market for some cold, hard Steam credits.
Gas Passer hate in MVM. The Gas Passer is one of the last weapons to ever be added in TF2. And as all other weapons, it has upgrades in MVM, one of them being very OP, where every robot you douse with gasoline explodes immediately if you ignite them afterwards. Now, here's the interesting thing. If some players don't want it to be too easy and play more casually, I understand them perhaps not using this. It is OP. The paradox begins with pro-level MVM. Toxic pro players are known to kick anyone for anything really. They want to complete the tours as fast as possible to hopefully get an Australian drop. Pure gambling degeneracy basically. Using a single weapon outside of the meta is enough to get you kicked by them. However, they will also kick you if you use the Gas Passer. Because it's too good? The paradox is obviously explained by the fact that most pro-level MVM players are whiny crybabies that hate other people having better stats than them. This isn't meant to say all pro MVM players are like this. I have met a lot of nice pro MVM players in my time, but oh boy do the worst of them get dumb. If you ever find yourself in a MVM round with someone who has hundreds if not thousands of tours, I advise to be careful, and just leave if they show signs of toxicity. Heavy's PhD in Russian literature. If you assume Poker Night at the inventory as canon to TF2, then the Heavy has a PhD in Russian literature. It doesn't seem too far-fetched because contrary to how the Heavy is often portrayed in fan Gmod animations, he's actually insanely smart in canon. Quantum Crouch Exploit. This is a glitch that allows you to exist in a state between crouching and standing, allowing you to see out of bounds and also place buildings there. This was fixed in the Steam version but remains in the console ports. German low violence files. For the longest amount of time, Germany had strict laws regarding video game violence. These have thankfully become a lot more lax today, though imageries of Nazi stuff that isn't used in an educational, purely historical or very obvious satirical context is still banned. To have TF2 be sold in Germany back then, Valve added a region-based censorship to the German version. This replaced all GIFs with the cartoon props and removed blood decals and particles. Let me tell you that as a German this was a piece of work to get rid of. It's a billion times worse than uninstalling McAfee. I had to contact Valve to remove the restriction multiple times by now, and only very recently did it work. It's so insane. Birthday mode. August 24th is the birthday of TF2. In this mode, presents are dropped as ammo packs, and you can use the birthday noisemaker. Jeanne. This is a minor character in the TF2 comics. She's the Heavy's younger sister, and for a slight spoiler alert of the TF2 comics, she eventually falls in love with the soldier and becomes his wife. Taunts found as drops. There used to be a chance for taunts to drop super rarely. This is supposed to be disabled now, but from all I can see online, people are still saying they exist as exceedingly rare drops.
TF bot names. Most Valve games have bot support, TF2 included, but the names that are given to them are abnormal. Like in Counter-Strike, the bots are named after some of the game devs and just some other regular names, and they're always prefixed with bot. In TF2 though, the bots have funnier names. They're usually references to other Valve games like GLaDOS or Shell. But then there's others like Trigger_Hurt or Some Dude, or just straight up binary.
glorified toaster with legs. Speaking of bot names, back in the day TF2 players complained about TF2 bots being absolutely awful and called them glorified toasters with legs, after which Valve added this as one of their bot names. TF2 masks in Saints Row 3. This was a DLC pack for Saints Row 3, adding 9 masks of TF2 characters among other things. Blue mercs in MVM. It was originally the plan to have both team colors be mixed in MVM for the human side. This got removed after playtester feedback. Universal killstreak kits. Killstreak kits can be crafted or dropped at the end of MVM Tour of Duties. And for a short amount of time there was a glitch where dropped kits did not have an assigned weapon, meaning you could apply them to any item in your inventory, including misc items like keys, which are still being sold on the community market to this day. Real life people in the Team Fortress universe. We spoke about Tom Jones earlier, but there are more real people mentioned in TF2. This includes George Washington, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Amelia Earhart, Benedict Arnold, Fred Astaire, John Wilkes Booth, Sun Tzu, William Prescott, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and probably a lot more mentioned in more minor ways. There are also parodies of real people like Shakespearicles, who was the strongest writer who ever lived and invented the rocket launcher, stage play, two-story buildings, and America. Lo-Fi Longwave. This is a hat granted to winners of giveaways done on Critscast, a popular TF2 tournament hoster. Apparently there is a limited number of these that will ever be given out, but it was not specified how many. Removed cosmetic set effects. Up until mid-2013 there were 5 sets of cosmetic items that actually gave you gameplay benefits if you wore them. There was the special delivery set for Scout that gave him an extra 25 max health, the Tank Buster which gave 20% sentry damage resistance to the soldier, the Gas Jockey's gear which gave the Pyro 10% faster move speed and 10% higher bullet damage vulnerability, the Croco style kit that gave headshot immunity to the sniper which is insane, and the Saharan Spy which used to reduce decloak sound volume and gave 0.5 second longer cloak blink time. It's quite obvious now that having limited set of cosmetics giving you advantages in gameplay makes no sense in a game like TF2. But this feature persisted for 3 total years before being removed. Afterwards, these were all swapped out for cosmetic advantages. Wearing any of the 4 first sets now leaves a calling card on anyone you kill, which is just a gravestone. The Saharan Spy gets a unique sandstorm effect when taunting instead. There are a few more cosmetic sets that have other boosts too, mostly affecting voice lines and taunts. And there are still 2 sets that affect gameplay, but in a much more limited and fair way. The Isolationist pack for Scout and Nostromo Napalma set for Pyro affect each other. Scouts wearing the sets do 4 times melee damage to Pyros wearing their set, and Pyros will do 4 times damage with a flamethrower on Scouts wearing their set. It's pretty one-sided towards the Pyro, but overall, this is a very fun idea as it's a reference to the Alien movies. Glitched normal quality weapons. There are a few glitched normal weapons. The normal item quality is usually reserved for stock weapons, which cannot be traded or sold unless you change them in some way, like applying a killstreak kit, which in turn makes them unique items instead of normal ones. Mainly there are a few strange weapons that were unboxed or rewarded in Man-Up shortly after the Gunmetal update that were assigned to normal quality, but still counted kills. There are also a few glitched normal bats which origin is unknown. The last time it was sold it went for about $2,500.
Unused taunts. There are a bunch of unused taunts in TF2, including a throat slit and simply sitting down, which is my personal favorite. It would take forever to track all of these down, so thankfully, other people have done it for us. You can go check out their great videos about all of the missing taunts.
The Grandmaster. This is a promotional item that was awarded to people purchasing the TF2 chess set. It's no longer available to be purchased and thus a limited item. Currently it's being sold for $150. 4 boxes in MVM. This is referring to a rare phenomenon in MVM. When you complete a tour in MVM, you will usually be greeted by loot of 2 kinds, 2 or 3 boxes. 2 boxes is a bad sign, since after every MVM tour you get at least 1 killstreak kit fabricator and 1 killstreak kit. 3 boxes gives you a chance at an Australium, the holy grail of MVM loot, but could also simply be a specialized killstreak fabricator. There is a very rare event of 4 boxes though, in which case you are guaranteed an Australium. Since this only happens when you get both a professional killstreak kit fabricator and Australian weapon. In my 25 or so tours of MVM, I have only seen this happen to someone like 2 times maybe, so consider yourself very lucky if this happens. Volknor. Volknor is the name of the person who won one of the auctions at the Child's Play charity and received one of every TF2 item at the time. Mind you, this was in 2010, so there weren't that many items yet. It did produce a few glitched items though, if you wanna call it that, like the only existing unique companion Q pin, which was otherwise only awarded in genuine quality. CP Stand and Final. This community map was added in 2013. I'm not sure what exactly is noteworthy about this map though for it to be so relatively low in the list. The strange dupe shovel inflation of 2018. In 2018, Soundsmith uploaded a video that was basically about him and his friends attempting to buy a duped shovel as a joke. A strange shovel is basically worthless, and a duplicated one is worth even less. Duplicated items were usually created through Steam support since they used to refund scam players with a duplicated version of the item. They stopped doing this after people exploited it. This video caused an inflation in the price of duped shovels since it turned into a meme. Engineer's missing hitbox. For a very long time, the engineer had no hitbox near his belt. This was only fixed in 2016. Pocket Pauling's Note. This cosmetic for the Scout features a Miss Pauling doll with a small clipboard. A clipboard that actually has text written on it. It says, "Scout is the best of the 249 and he definitely deserves a pay rise and all the chicks in the world." 249 is another name for the TF2 mercenaries. Red Tape Recorder secret message. The Red Tape Recorder is a sapper for the spy. One that de-levels buildings is applied to until they're back in the box they came from, if not removed. It also plays different sounds than the regular recorder. If you slow them down enough, one of them plays a short clip of music, while the other one actually has a message saying, Sasha. This is the name the Heavy gave his minigun. For anyone that believes that the Poker Knight and the Inventory Heavy's lines are not canon, you may have some proof here, since he calls the Iron Curtain minigun Sasha as well, which doesn't make sense. Unusual hazmat head case. This is a head for the Pyro and Sniper, interestingly enough. There's a bug where most unusual effects on this head come out of the player's chest. And on the Pyro Sniper thing, it was originally only added as a Pyro cosmetic. Someone on the workshop made a fix for this head that fixed some tiny issues with it. And before sending them to Valve to hopefully implement it, added a line that also made this head compatible for the Sniper. As a joke. Well, we all know how that went. Awesome backstory though. Noisemakers. Noisemakers can be equipped in the equipment slot, that when used, make noise. Most can only be used during special events like TF2's birthday, which is one that everyone receives for free on that day, Halloween or Smithmas. Some also only have a restricted amount of uses, and some have particle effects accompanying them. Medic sold his soul to the devil. In the comics it's revealed that the medic sold his soul to the devil. Yeah. Concept art. Like with almost any other game, there exists a lot of concept art for TF2. A lot of it looking different than what we got, as is the case most times. Steam support rewarding vintage items. For some time, Steam support gave back vintage versions of items to those who accidentally deleted theirs or similar. This is no longer a thing though, since it was exploited rather often. Marketing poses. Some TF2 characters have animations included that are only used for non-gameplay purposes, like marketing an update or similar. On screen you're seeing a few of them. Bugged MVM upgrades. As of the making of this video, there are a bunch of MVM upgrades that just straight up don't work. This includes the second and third upgrade of the sentry firing speed, the minigun's second firing speed upgrade doesn't do anything, second and third knockback range upgrade doesn't work properly, plus a bunch more cases with similar weapons. We have a MVM update releasing this year, so maybe that will change things. It is to note that one of the supposed most popular bugged upgrades does actually work, which is Rocket Specialist for the soldier. Original taunt thumbnails. TF2 taunts follow a strict art style, where it's a mix of orange and white coloring on a grey background. Back when there were only a few, they had regular rendered 3D models as icons. Glitched / impossible unusuals. With the hundreds of cosmetics that exist today, there are a few that are bound to be bugged with certain unusual effects. Most of the time these get fixed though. What is more interesting are the impossible unusuals. For example, this unusual gibbous or head of undeniable worth and respect, which are achievement and promo items. Back in the day, people who reported big exploits were thanked by Valve by receiving basically any item they wished for. These heads could however not be traded or sold in any way. Because of this, we now have a bunch of otherwise impossible unusuals floating around people's inventories. The inventories of those who reported big exploits. Since 2015 this is no longer a thing. And anyone who now reports massive exploits gets the Finder's Fee head with an unusual effect of their choosing. Collector's Dead of Night. The Dead of Night is an all-class suit cosmetic. Because of its popularity, it still remains at a high price of $1 each, which is rather high for a singular TF2 cosmetic in unique quality. The collector's one could thus be argued to be one of the most expensive collector's cosmetics to get. According to backpack.tf, only a singular one exists. Currently it's being offered for 5,000 keys, but that only seems like a starting price. One was sold for 1,400 keys 9 years ago, which would equal something around $4,000 a day. The Blimp. There is an unused Blimp MVM icon. It's likely that this would have been a boss fight in the MVM map Manhattan, which doesn't feature a regular tank in any of its waves and was added alongside the unused Blimp icon. Sentry Buster Nav Mesh exploit. The Sentry Buster usually tracks down a sentry and then explodes next to it. By picking up the sentry and getting to specific positions in certain MVM maps, you can trick the game into thinking there is no sentry on the map, causing the Sentry Buster to detonate immediately wherever it's standing. Wikicap. This item was awarded in community quality to valuable contributors of the Team Fortress Wiki. Theoretically, these are still being given out. The last approved valuable contributor was added only 2 months ago as of writing this video, Finder's Fee. As mentioned before, this head is granted to people who find big exploits with an unusual effect of their choosing. Critscast. Mentioned this earlier, popular host of TF2 tournaments.
Gang Garrison 2. Gang Garrison 2 is a 2D pixel art remake of Team Fortress 2. It has been downloaded over 500,000 times, and the best thing about it is that it's open source, meaning it receives regular updates by developers who just have too much time on their hands. Go check it out, it's actually kind of fun.
Vintage Community Sparkles Lugamorphs. There are 26 vintage Community Sparkled Lugamorphs. The Lugamorph is a promotional item granted to people who purchased Sam & Max The Devil's Playhouse in its first 10 days of release. After this weapon got introduced as a drop in Poker Night at the inventory, every previously owned Lugamorph was granted the vintage quality. And just like any other community item that gets added into TF2, the creators of Sam & Max The Devil's Playhouse got given a self-made version of this item. Once all Lugamorphs got turned into vintage ones though, this affected those ones too, and also removed the trade restrictions from this item while still keeping the Community Sparkles effect. It seems that at least one Lugamorph escaped containment of the developers and has since been duped a number of times through Steam support exploits. And now there are 26 in circulation. The last one that sold went for $6,400 not even a year ago. Green and yellow. These are the logical conclusions to the red and blue team names, and also the ones found in the mod Team Fortress 2 Classic. They do not exist in regular TF2 lore. Powerhouse Unused Areas. Powerhouse was added in the 2015 Gunmetal update. If you no-clip around, you will find a bunch of unused areas and rooms. It's unclear why these exist or why they were cut. It is to know that this map was originally being developed in 2007 and abandoned until it got picked up again in 2015.
RD Asteroid. RD Asteroid is a map for the abandoned beta game mode called Robot Destruction that was released back on July 8th, 2014 as part of the Manco Beta Maps Early Access program, and it could be played through casual mode, called Quick Play back then. The map has 2 bases and has a space aesthetic. It does of course take place on an asteroid after all. The objective for the game mode is to be the first team to reach a total number of points, that being 300. These points can be collected in several different ways, by destroying robots that are moseying about in the other team's base, or by stealing the other team's core. Unfortunately, RD Asteroid hasn't been updated since December 15th, 2014, and you can no longer play it in casual mode. The map wasn't quite finished visually either, the blue base needing some more work done. Quite a shame, really, it did look pretty cool, but since TF2 is an evolving game, this stuff just happens sometimes.
Level 4. Vintage. We're slowly but surely moving away from things that one could argue are regular features of TF2 to more cut content, lore speculation, TF2 references in other games, and glitches. Needle jumping. This is a glitch that remains in the console version. You stand above a medic, the medic then shoots the syringe gun at you as you jump. Due to a physics error, you will start flying upwards. TF2 in VR. You used to be able to play regular TF2 wearing a VR headset, which didn't affect anything outside of your head movements. This is no longer officially supported though. There is however a popular TF2 mod pack for a VR game called Contractors that allows you to play against other players in actual VR, which is actually the closest thing to a VR TF2 mode, including actually physically reloading your weapons and everything else you expect from a VR game.
Robots run on money. Robots in the Man vs. Machine game mode run on money. I mean, honestly, who doesn't, right? But on a serious note, they use the stuff as actual fuel, it seems. And they drop that money when they get destroyed as well, letting you, the player, pick it up for yourself to keep. You can then use that money to buy upgrades for your weapons, or you can buy a power-up canteen with it, which can give you various different effects. So, in a way, their fuel kind of becomes your fuel, huh? Like I alluded to at the beginning, humans, robots, we're not so different after all, now are we?
The mercs have no souls. The medic sold his soul to the devil, and it's made clear in the comics that he somehow came into the possession of 8 other souls. It is most likely that this is referring to the TFC characters instead of the TF2 ones, since those also appear in the comics as separate people. so the mercs may or may not have souls. It is to note that during Halloween events you can collect souls from the gargoyle by killing other players, which would imply they have souls. I'm not sure Valve is that serious about TF2 lore generally though, since, you know, it's TF2. We got a whole alien invasion as a community update that was never mentioned in the comics.
Copyright lololol. In the awesome Meet the Team videos, you can see copyright lololol on the title screens. I remember seeing this 15 years ago and just laughing my ass off. And to this day, some people still ask, what does it mean? And it's simple, it's meaningless, it's just funny. They just put it there because that's where the copyright thing would be in a real piece of work.
Manco's salvaged crates. These used to be rare crate drops and are even rarer now, since they basically don't drop at all anymore. The only way to get new ones is by using pallets of crates, which aren't available anymore either. The strange weapons these crates included were always highly sought after. Some got added in later crates again, though only some. This is the reason certain strangers like the Strange Gunslinger or Strange PDA among others are so highly sought after, and cost about $200 now. Francis the Talking Franz. This is a character Valve made up to judge the sexies. It is a sentient manifestation of France that knows a lot about films. It claims to have invented the words, here we go, mise en scène, auteur, avant-garde, montage and cinéma. It ended up appearing in some comics and cosmetics too. The Deflector. This is a weapon made for MVM mode. It's used by a few of the giant heavy enemy robots. It's the same as the regular minigun with the added bonus of destroying rockets and grenades in flight. It's also more accurate. One player used to once own this item. They found a critical glitch with the item schema files of TF2, and to prove it works, gave themselves a deflector. Valve fixed the exploit, removed the gun and gave the player an unusual of their choice. The mail coupon. This is likely referring to the Scout update, on which one promotional image included this mail coupon. It says, yes, I want to shoot things and watch them fly backwards, then reload very slowly. Send me the Foster Nature today. And no, I am a coward who wouldn't know a great deal if it knocked me backwards into a forest. Send me nothing, I'm so scared. And of course a name and address line. If you actually filled this out and sent it to Valve, you received a few gifts, including a letter from Saxton Hale, which was the first time we've ever seen him alongside a few items that were unreleased at the time. And you got a keychain of a random class. What's in the insert name box? There are 4 boxes that all follow the naming formula of what's in the insert name box. There is a Sandwich, Companion Square, Portal 2 and Team Fortress 2 soundtrack box. These first 2 were given out at San Diego Comic Con 2012. And the latter 2 could be obtained by using the code found on the CD case of the Portal 2 soundtrack and on the TF2 soundtrack vinyl respectively. Opening them gave genuine quality items. The Sandwich box contained the Sandwich reskin Robo Sandwich and the AAA badge. The Companion Square box contained the Friends Forever Companion Square badge and the AAA badge once more. The Portal 2 box contained the Absep Seppa reskin. And the soundtrack box contained the Audiophile cosmetic. Outside of the Audiophile, all of the other ones are unobtainable now. Circling Peace Sign Stout Shackle. The very first unusual hat ever unboxed was a Circling Peace Sign Stout Shackle. The original owner eventually sold it to someone for 1,000 keys, according to @OTGT26 reporting on YouTube. Scout's Rare Death Easter Egg. This likely refers to the 5% chance of a Gibbed Scout to have a dove flying out of his torso, a reference to Meet the Medic, where Archimedes is stuck in Scout's chest. TF2 Easter Egg in Minecraft. Back when the Manco store first released, it was pretty controversial to say the least, and also the first of its kind. This caused Minecraft to parody it in the 2011 April Fool's update. Minecraft is known to make a joke update every year, one that is not actually part of what will stay in Minecraft. It's its own separate branch. In this update you could find chests randomly in the environment. Trying to open them would tell the players that they need a Steve Co. supply crate key that you can buy in the Minecraft store. The store itself included a bunch of Easter eggs as well. Trying to actually check out caused a Velociraptor jumpscare. I had nightmares about this as a kid. If you had items worth $10,000 or more in your cart, a pop-up would ask if you're prone to epileptic seizures. If you said no, the screen would blink. Very funny joke. Thankfully, Minecraft would never... Oh god.
TF2 locations in real life. 2-4 in real life. Yes, it exists. You can find it pretty easily by just going to Street View to these coordinates. It's located in Weldon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and the resemblance is pretty damn close. It isn't exactly one-to-one of course, and I doubt Valve even modeled it off this exact one. There's a ton of other prairie grain elevators that look very similar, but hey, it's close enough. But there's gotta be some other TF2 locations in real life, right? Nope.
Energy Orb Unusual Effect. There are a total of 4 unusual effects for weapons: Hot, Isotope, Cool and Energy Orb. You can only obtain 3 of them anymore though, which are Hot, Isotope and Cool. The Energy Orb effect was apparently so glitchy that Valve simply decided to remove any chance of unboxing it. Very Valve way of fixing things. It is the coolest unusual weapon effect if you ask me and many other people. An effect that is now a very limited supply. It could be any day though that Valve locks in and drops it again. We'll simply have to see. Watchmaker. The creator of the Southern Hospitality Ranch is called Watchmaker. In the Engineer Update teaser, a tag could be seen on the ranch, saying, "From Watchmaker." TF2 card deck and Poker Night. Poker Night at the inventory let you unlock custom card decks. One of them is a TF2 deck, featuring some of the classes, Pin-Up Poster Women and Sex Inhale on the Ace. Towering Pillar of Summer Shades. This is another promo item given during the Steam Summer Adventure 2014. It was randomly given to people crafting badges during the events. According to backpack.tf, there exists about 350 of these, and they're currently being sold for about $180. Top Notch. The original transphobic creator of Minecraft, Notch, actually played so much TF2 that he got his own custom hat back in the day. Meet the Medic outtakes. These are simply deleted scenes of the Meet the Medic video. They are not yet properly animated and playing at something like 10 FPS mostly. It explains the backstory of the Medigun and the spy set. The description notes that explaining the backstory of the Medigun wasn't that interesting, and they instead used more time to explore the Heavy and Medic's relationship. Two-Fort Poisoned Water. Two-Fort is the name of the town in which the Two-Fort map is located canonically. It's explained that everyone in this town is severely lead poisoned due to the Two-Fort facility spilling chemicals into the water. The people are thus very dumb. TF2WH.com. This is an old-school TF2 training site that shut down more than 7 years ago now. It simply got overshadowed by other websites like Scrap.tf or Backpack.tf. Flip-flops, Lucky Number 42, Summer Hat and Summer Shades. These items were all available for purchase until July 2011 in the Summer Camp sale, an otherwise regular Steam sale that also introduced 13 new items into TF2. The only exception to this is the Summer Shades, for which you need to collect and exchange 3 tickets that you earned by doing a bunch of objectives introduced during the event. Even though they should be very rare, they're only about $1, and 100k of them actually exist. Repair Note. Valve at one point considered adding an alternate building for the Engineer, most likely replacing the dispenser given its looks. The Repair Node would repair nearby buildings, which would allow engineers to leave their nest without immediate fear of it being destroyed by chip attacks. You can also spot it in the background of the Engineer Update teaser, which was the only time it was ever seen textured. For a long time at least. TF2 gameplay trailer versus release differences. The original TF2 gameplay trailer looks vastly different from TF2 on release. Characters look different, the shaders look different, the scout still has his cut nailgun weapon, the Two-Fort bridge is missing, ragdolls somehow look like they have less gravity too. It kind of falls into the uncanny valley in a way. I definitely prefer the current look. Robo Sandwich. This item was mentioned earlier in the What's in the Sandwich box entry. It's simply a reskin of the regular sandwich featuring a small lamp on it that changes depending on what team you're on. I would love to own this item honestly, but I'm not gonna pay $400 for it. Maggie. Maggie is the name of Sex Inhale's girlfriend in the comics. Glitched circuit board. In 2013 there was a bug that allowed people to craft a head only meant for robots in MVM. This was patched out, and players that got it were instead rewarded the glitched circuit board cosmetic. It was last sold on the Steam community market for $450, even though it doesn't alter your appearance in the slightest when you wear it. Calling cards. Talked about this earlier. This is what the gravestones that appear at dead bodies are referred to when you wear sets of cosmetics that previously gave boosts. Vintage metals. Metals are only supposed to be available in unique quality. Back when Steam support gave people back scammed items, they often returned them in vintage quality. Thus, some vintage metals were created. Even though it doesn't do anything special, these are still some of the most valuable items. Vintage scrap metal was last sold for 550 keys. Vintage reclaimed metal was last sold for 640 keys, and vintage refined metal was last sold for 635 keys, all of which are somewhere around $1,500. Mario_Kart. This is a community map that exists for casual gameplay. It features a bunch of fun, interactable things and is perhaps the most iconic community map of them all. A lot of that popularity comes from the very famous Team Fabulous 2 YouTube video, which was created by Kitty0706, who sadly passed away from leukemia in 2015. One of the most legendary TF2/Gmod creators to ever exist. Rest in peace forever, my dude. Broadboard rockets. For a few months in 2011, these rockets appeared in the skybox of many TF2 maps. These were a teaser for the upcoming release of the cosmetics and weapons made in collaboration with Weta Workshop. There's also a short comic to accompany this story. These are all the items that were added. Nicholas Crowder. This is referring to a TF2 original character otherwise known as Old Nick. He was introduced in the comic titled A Smith's Story. Spoiler alert for this small comic, he eventually gets killed by a child with an icicle. While Old Nick sounds like Santa's alternative name Saint Nick, it's actually a name often used for the devil in Christian theology. The Director. This is the person responsible for the Meet the Team series. He was hired by the administrator to make these movies, with the secret purpose of spying on the mercs so she can use the info against them later. The director was unaware of this, and thought he was instead hired to show the world that the mercenaries weren't just armed psychopaths blowing up all the landmarks on a daily basis. After his real job was done, the administrator hired Miss Pauling to assassinate him. She lured him into a mine with a bag of quicklime and a shovel tucked away in a truck. It's unknown if he really got killed. There are however a few missing posters with the director on it found in multiple maps. The real names of the classes. Most TF2 classes have real names that we know of. As talked about before, the scout's real name is Jeremy Willis. The soldier's name is unknown. He's referred to as Mr. Jane Doe once, Jane Doe being the standard name given to unidentified dead female bodies. So Mr. Jane Doe is quite a funny name. The pyro's name is unknown, obviously. The demoman's name is Tavish Finnegan de Groot. The heavy's name is Misha, short for Mikhail. The engineer's name is Dr. Del Conager. Medic is called Herbert Ludwig. Sniper's name is Mr. Mundy. And as you'd hope to be the case for a good spy, his name is also unknown. Geel. Geel9 is one of the creators of Scrap.tf. He's been involved in a ton of drama involving lots of serious topics and other owners of Scrap.tf. It's a very messy situation and I'm not here to make any definitive claims. These days he's completely removed himself from trading and doesn't own partials of any TF2 trading sites anymore, according to his Steam profile. Tradable, untradeable items. You used to be able to wrap untradeable items in a gift and then trade them, which got patched a long time ago. There are many cases where otherwise untradeable items could be acquired in a tradable variety through glitches. For example, some of the Poker Night at the inventory items were briefly craftable. These crafted items would then be tradable, until it got fixed, at which point they got turned into untradable items. Sometimes untradable items became tradable in updates, like the head of the demo pan, which used to be untradable until an update in 2016. Welcome to the Internet's achievement. The Meet the Spy trailer was leaked back before it released, due to a YouTube glitch where iPhones were able to watch private videos. Meet the Spy was uploaded on Valve's channel. Although private, iPhone users were able to watch and leak it. On the 5th day of the Spy update, they teased a bunch of new achievements, including a joke achievement called Welcome to the Internet, which's unlock requirement is fail to understand what private means on YouTube. Vintage earbuds, Bill's head and Max's severed head. I spoke on this earlier. Some people that got items refunded by Valve directly got them in vintage quality. Thus, some vintage earbuds, Bill's heads, and Max's severed heads exist. Cancelled Adult Swim show. You know expiration date, right? The awesome TF2 15-minute short that I mentioned a few times already? Well, it turns out, this was meant to be part 1 of a TF2 Adult Swim show, which would have been the most awesome, legendary, epic thing to ever exist. Unfortunately, however, this is Valve we're talking about. And from the rumors going around, it seems the only reason that the show never came to be is that Valve took way too much time making expiration date, and thus they only ever made the first episode. Perhaps the most grand failure by Valve ever. Engineer's face in Meet the Pyro. For some reason, in the final zoom out on the Pyro in the main title screen in Meet the Pyro, the engineer looks like he's had a stroke for about 1 second. Final Combat. This is the name of a Chinese ripoff of TF2. The game is offline now, but there are archive files of it online, hiding in barrels. Some maps feature barrels that have buggy collision, meaning you can hide inside them. If you shoot, you will break the barrel though. So this is very situational. Sniper's kidney is 3 times bigger. Sniper took pills made by Saxon Hale to artificially expand his kidney to 3 times the size so he can create enough Jarati. This is why the Jarati doesn't work in medieval mode, since the pills had not been invented yet. Or well, wouldn't have been if this map actually took place in the time period it's supposed to be set in, which is something Skyman will tell you about later. For now, she'll tell you about something else though.
The Venture Brothers. For a time, TF2 had a partnership with Adult Swim, which resulted in both the game appearing on air and items from these shows appearing as cross-promotional cosmetics. In terms of the Adult Swim show The Venture Brothers, this entry likely refers to the multiple connections the two series have. Outside of an extremely similar sense of humor, The Venture Brothers was the site of the first and only televised commercial for TF2. This commercial aired during the show's Season 5 premiere. The commercial itself is simply a short SFM animation that advertises the Venture Brothers in-game items. However, TF2 has actually directly appeared in the Venture Brothers. In the Season 6 episode, It Happening One Night, Rusty can be seen playing the worst gameplay you've ever seen of a Dust Bowl match. The footage and the dialogue actually don't match up, seeing as how Hatred claims that they were on the same team as Rusty killed him as a red pyro, while Hatred was a blue soldier. The frame rate is choppy to match the animation, the gameplay makes no sense, so it's really just functioning as a cute Easter egg that shows the two properties had a good working relationship. Both TF2 and Venture Brothers are cut from the same cloth in both inspirations and humor, so having them cross over is a match made in Barbarella Purgatory. If you want to take this connection a little further, Heavy appeared as an NPC in Poker Night at the Inventory, while Brock Sampson appears in the sequel. They never have direct interaction, but it's a neat connection through a short-lived series.
TF2 map Easter eggs. This is a very generalized entry. Lots of singular Easter eggs are covered in this Iceberg. On top of this, there have been so many hundreds of maps in TF2 that going through every Easter egg would take hours on its own. So let's just move on and explore the singular Easter eggs when they come up. Soldier's time in the army. The soldier really wanted to get into the military, but was rejected from every single branch of the army. Secret messages in texture files. Texture creators often like to hide secret messages in textures, specifically if it's for models, since those usually feature a bunch of unused space. That being said, I can't find any examples in TF2. One secret was a trans flag hidden inside of the Pocket Engineer cosmetic, which got removed rather quickly afterwards by Valve because grown-ass men were likely to cry about it. Shout out to all the trans people watching. Soldier's list of jobs. We find out that the soldier has quite a long job history that we don't know a lot about. Outside of being a mercenary, he seemingly was also a barista lawyer, a priest in Guam, and a sergeant.
TF2 Invasion. Team Fortress 2 has had a pretty interesting development period with different phases and concepts that it experimented with. One of such concepts was an extension on the already in development Brotherhood of Arms phase called TF2 Invasion, and it was a War of the Worlds inspired concept that featured a human versus aliens plot. The gameplay of Invasion was quite different from that of TF2 as we know it today. A typical match roughly consists of 3 15-minute acts, and both teams having to collect resources to acquire different types of objects/building. Once you have enough buildings in the control zones all across the maps and have collected enough resources, your team wins the game. And these maps were big too, requiring vehicles to drive across them. After developing this concept for TF2 for a bit, Valve decided to scrap it because it felt like it was way too complex. Instead, they decided to take the original classic concept of Team Fortress, streamline it for modern audiences, and give it a unique art style. And that is pretty much what we ended up getting. Invasion sounded ambitious though, and I wonder what it would have been like if it actually ended up releasing.
Meteor Match update. Meteor Match was intended to modernize the game by adding official matchmaking for both competitive and casual play, but it ended up being one of the most controversial updates in its history. On the surface, it introduced a new competitive mode with ranks and a new unranked casual mode that replaced the old quick play system, though this didn't quite go as planned. It was buggy, there were long queue times, and the servers were unstable. It also inadvertently led to a decline in community servers, which had been the heart of the game for years. And it introduced a hidden skill-based system in casual that took away the unpredictable fun of pub games. There were some more additions to this update, but this is generally what it's most remembered for. Demo Man's gunboats. Way back in the day, there was the War update, which pitted the Demo Man and Soldier against each other. Both of them got a lot of new content in this time. The most interesting aspect of this event was that during the time it was held, there was a counter for how often Demo Man players killed Soldier players and the other way around, which the Soldier won by only about 30,000 more kills for a total of 6.4 million kills. As a reward, the Soldier received the gunboats. As confirmed by Robin Walker in an email, if the Demo Man had instead won, this weapon would have gone to the Demo Man. So there is a universe in which the gunboats are a Demo Man only weapon. Fireproof Secret Diary. This is an action item for all classes. It allows the player to pick up and cast magic spells on Halloween maps. Its description reads, "It's smoldering a little, but otherwise it seems okay. This thing must be built out of the same stuff they make ancient astronauts from." When you wear the medic's Eliminating the Impossible set, which increases the medic's mystery solving time by up to 88%, it instead reads, "The deeds of hellish cruelty and none the wiser," which is part of a quote of The Adventures of Copper Beeches, a Sherlock Holmes book, which is what the cosmetic set is based on. The full quote is, "Think of the deeds of hellish cruelty, the hidden wickedness which may go on, year in, year out, in such places, and none the wiser."
TF2 crossover and other games. Given how popular TF2 is, no doubt it has been referenced countless times in other media, and alongside that, there have been some crossovers with TF2 and other games. Some examples include Surgeon Simulator, where you can play as the medic operating on Heavy, including voice lines. Or in I Am Bread, there is a level where you can climb on Heavy, and in Poker Night at the Inventory you can play against Heavy. Seems like Heavy has been everywhere. In Killing Floor you can play as a character inspired by the Pyro, and then there's a whole load of more examples that would take me forever to explain.
Add cond. This is a TF2 command that adds conditions to the player, as one could guess from the name add cond. There's a total of 130 of these, involving all kinds of Ubers, particle effects related to all sorts of things, and just about every other status effect a player or MVM bot can have. Level 5. Genuine. We're moving along rather quickly, huh? As someone who spent a ton of time playing TF2 and watched a lot of videos, I only knew about a few of these. Let's get right into it. Escape from Team Fortress. This is a web series that was considered lost media at one point. The series revolved around 3 friends who haven't seen each other in years reuniting for a game night and ending up being teleported into TF2. It was eventually found again, and the full pilot was uploaded in 2023 by the original creator, who stated in a comment that he has complete audio for 7 to 10 episodes and plans to release those alongside any kinds of storyboards in the future, so other people can finish the animation. Fake community servers. There are a bunch of community servers that purely exist to redirect you to another server, usually a fast-path one, who are guilt-tripping people to donate to them and also run ads and the like. Unused kill icons. A ton of weapons have custom kill icons, including the stock ones for headshots, backstabs and even more. There are also a bunch of unused ones. Here's all of them. Most interesting is this one, indicating that there used to be a fly swatter weapon planned. This one also looks very interesting. Looks like a lantern weapon? Tom Jones was killed in the afterlife. As mentioned before, Tom Jones died twice. Once in normal life and once in the afterlife. The latter death happened in heaven during Scout's visit. He was not supposed to be seen by the Scout, so God quickly snapped his neck. Jingle Jam. This is a yearly charity event hosted by Yorkscast, one that used to award people who donated with a badge in TF2. The last time this was a thing was 2017 though. Scrapped stock weapons. The Scout scattergun was still a nail gun in the trailers. The Spy originally had a tranquilizer gun instead of his revolver. The Sniper had a club, the Pyro a branding iron, and the Heavy had a lead pipe. There are likely more we don't know about, or where we at least don't know if they're scrapped stock weapons. The Walkabout. Speaking of cut weapons, the Walkabout is a scrapped unlockable primary for the Sniper. This would have likely been unlocked after getting a certain number of achievements. All we know about the Walkabout stats are that there would have been no headshots and it had a different charge rate. The name of the weapon refers to a rite of passage in which young Aboriginal Australians undertake a journey that will help transform them into adults.
CTF Badlands. Hey, no click here. Badlands is one of TF2's most iconic maps, but it actually started out as a Capture the Flag map back in Team Fortress Classic. Early TF2 development even had a CTF version of Badlands before it was reworked into the 5 control point map we know today. This original CTF Badlands for TF2 looks quite different than the one we got later on in 2008.
One-handed half Satoichi. The half Satoichi is a melee weapon for the demo man and soldier. Once equipped, you cannot unequip it until you get a kill, unless you want to take 50 damage. Tangent, but originally you genuinely couldn't unequip it anymore unless you got a kill. The soldier holds his weapon one-handed. The demo man is supposed to hold it with 2 hands and does so usually, but in the loadout menu he holds it one-handed. Same goes when a spy disguises as a demo man wielding one. Little Jack. This is the kid that murdered Nicholas. Old Geezer bobblehead. This is an unused bobblehead from Meet the Sniper, as revealed by Valve themselves. It's the bobblehead of the Old Geezer beer company that you can find on some posters in TF2. TF2 magazine artworks. There are some official TF2 artworks in the magazine style, which is my best guess as to what it is referring to. It is how most update announcements were stylized. Macrofilm suit and cape and gloves. These are images seen on day 4 of the Sniper vs Spy update. They simply exist to make this image look cooler from all it seems. We never got any cosmetics like this. Voodoo cursed items. These are a bunch of items added in the 2012 Halloween update. By crafting 7 of these together, you received a pile of curses, which you could open to receive 1 of 9 voodoo cursed souls. The cosmetic item that turns the mercs into zombies. Must have items honestly. They also had a chance of being in the haunted quality, which are slightly valuable at least. The Islander is sentient. In one comic, it is revealed that the Islander is fully sentient. It even speaks. Half-Life DJ. This is the name of a program that can play audio files over voice chat. There are better alternatives these days though. Soda Popper plus 10 firing speed. The Soda Popper already has a 50% higher firing rate. Thus, when you wanna upgrade it in Man vs Machine, you can't increase the firing speed anymore. Unless you follow this specific Steam guide, which allows you to purchase a singular firing speed upgrade on it anyways. This also works on Force of Nature, Rocket Jumper and Sticky Jumper. The latter two can upgrade the plus 50% ammo capacity upgrade once. Not sure why you'd ever use the jumper weapons in MVM though. Unused cow mangler sounds. There are a bunch of unused sounds for it. Here they are. The Overhealer. A scrapped unlockable medigun for the medic. It has 2 nozzles in the front, but otherwise looks identical to the medigun. This weapon would heal people to 200% overheal and would not decay. It would be slower at getting an Uber though. You can probably tell that this weapon would have been insanely overpowered, and thus it never released. They eventually instead came up with the Kritzkrieg, which is still called Overhealer in the field sometimes. Sniper was adopted. The Sniper is indeed adopted. His biological parents are Bill Bell and Narna, who originally are from New Zealand. Bill Bell had theorized that the Earth would be covered in magma soon, and thus he proposed that New Zealand would be encased in a glass dome and sunk to the bottom of the ocean to survive. He then had the idea to instead launch the country into space, but the country had already used all their resources to get underwater. Bill Bell built a rocket to go to space, but then argued with his wife Lana on who gets to be the only occupant. During their fight, the Sniper crawls into the rocket and launches through the dome, thereby flooding New Zealand and crash landing in Australia. I'm not gonna spoil the fate of the Sniper's real parents. They may or may not return in a later comic. And come to think of it, this story sounds kinda similar to that of Superman. Copyright Om Nom Nom. Instead of the regular copyright lolololol, the Meet the Sandwich intro says copyright Om Nom Nom Nom. Valve is so silly, dude, I swear I love it. Agent Nessie. Agent Nessie is the first person ever to receive a golden wrench back when the original 100 dropped. Brundle bundle affecting other taunts. This is the item bundle that pitches up the engineer's voice, and while it's only supposed to do just that, it also affects other taunts that feature no spoken lines, specifically the dueling banjo and rancho relaxo. Unused Sydney Sleeper darts model. It seems Valve originally had plans to have the Sydney Sleeper use darts. These can still be found in the files. Potato's custom MVM servers. These are a set of servers that host custom MVM maps with custom missions. If you're a fan of MVM, these are super fun. And on rare occasions you can even receive medals for playing here. I can't say it enough, MVM is legit the most fun PvE to exist and Valve really failed to squeeze out all the potential. Which is what Potato's custom MVM servers are here for. Red Shed Whiskey. This is another company in the TF2 universe. It's seen in a few maps and in a comic. Most wanted notepad names. This is a taunt for the Sniper. The Sniper takes out a notepad and looks at his most wanted list, on which a lot of names are crossed out. These include some Easter egg names, like G. Freeman, G. Newell, T. Aukaka, and a few more. Here's a full list. Unused burning animations. There are unused animations for the mercs burning to death. These would likely have played right after the player died to fire, similar to how there are certain headshot animations. Birds carrying the bomb on snowy coast. I think the author of this Iceberg mistook the map here. This is actually in CP Snowplow. It's a reference to the end of the line short. Yanis Varoufakis. This is the name of an economist that used to work at Valve, who was in charge of making sure the TF2 economy was working well. He eventually moved on to become a finance minister in Greece during their time of debt. He was fired rather quickly though, as people described him as hard to work with. However, his political career didn't end there. And turns out he's insanely based. He's part of and supports a ton of left-wing parties in the EU. And as of 2024, was suing the German state for banning him from doing any political events because he co-organized a pro-Palestine conference in Berlin in 2024, claiming that Germany's on a road towards totalitarianism, which sounds reasonable to me. Best of luck in that lawsuit, my dude, shout out.
Meet the Demo Man, uncensored rant. In the fantastic Meet the Demo Man video, at one point bro just starts fully ranting, talking about the fact that he is black and Scottish, and so he is second to none. He is one of one. There aren't that many black Scottish people in games, and I suppose that's true. And a good chunk of this rant is completely censored out, leaving it a total mystery. Luckily though, Valve hosted a competition alongside Critscast to have people post their winning interpretations. The winners were split into 3 categories: funny clean, funny not clean, and most accurate to the script. The winner of Funny Clean was Flame Retardant Cross-Dressing Arsonist, which is a reference to the pyro and how quite a lot of people think it may be a woman. But I have to question, if that counts as cross-dressing, what exactly is expected of the pyro? A flame retardant skirt? I think that would have its own problems. The winner of Funny Not Clean was Sports You Play With Your Member Out, which I can only assume is a reference to Valorant. And the winner of the most accurate to script, Feckin' monsters in the Loch Ness quality.
Scout is literally a gift from God. This is true. The Scout is a gift from God for all the women on Earth. The Scout was surprised to learn this as well though, so it didn't quite work out. Bonzo and Gonzo. You have most likely seen Bonzo on the Carnival of Carnage map. It's this giant creature below the event area. It's the ancient Sumerian god of circuses, worshipped by Marasmus. Gonzo is the identical twin brother of Bonzo, found on the 2021 Halloween map Terror. In this map you actually drop a bomb into its mouth. Jumping down the hole will kill you, since its mouth is filled with crocodiles. Sax and hail cause extinctions. There is one confirmed and one probable extinction Saxon Hell caused. He killed every Yeti, thus causing them to go extinct. He also caused gorillas to nearly go extinct. He used gorilla blood to print comic issue number 44. And due to it being printed 17 million times, only 5 gorillas are left in the TF2 universe. The neutral Intel briefcase. Remaining in the game files is a white-colored neutral briefcase that can be picked up by both teams. It's been used to create custom maps sometimes, but remains unused in Valve maps. It was later reused with a different model in the special delivery game mode, the only maps of which being SD Doomsday and SD Doomsday Event, the Halloween version of the same map. Palette of crates. I mentioned this item earlier. When used, it gives a crate to 23 other players. If the server limit is higher than 24, it will give a crate to the 23 people that have been on it the longest. These only dropped from 2013 to 2015, and while they were basically a troll item back then, they're rather valuable now due to them being able to drop rare crates. Mayor Mike. Another character from the comics. He's the mayor of Toothford. He's also very bad at his job. He constantly abuses his power and has committed several crimes in his time as mayor, only counting the ones we know of. He also attempted to have the mercs arrested for his illegal doings and successfully arrested a few of them. If you want to learn more about what happened, go read the comics. Party hat is the oldest hat. Hats were only added in 2011. However, for every anniversary of TF2 before that, dating all the way back to the first one in 2008, all player models got the party hat added on their head, making the party hat the oldest hat in TF2 theoretically. Though, if you wanna go down that route, wouldn't all the hats of the Scout, Soldier, Demo Man, Engineer and Sniper be the oldest ones?
The quick fix would give Uber. In Beat the Medic, the Medigun is used to invulnerability Uber charge heavy. In-game, this would be impossible as the quick fix doesn't actually give invulnerability, but instead a high rate of healing. This is explained in the update page introducing the quick fix, which states that the Ubercharge function was activated for too long, permanently shorting out the invulnerability of the instrument. This tracks given the Medigun and the necessary implants were still in an unfinished state as of the events of Beat the Medic, hence why Heavy was being given the Ubercharge meter. He was the first proper experimented on merc. The quick fix was the stock Medigun's prototype, and after the events of the short, it's safe to say he improved and iterated on the technology, eventually leading him to the more stable stock Medigun.
Unused Robin Walker and John Cook flags. There's unused assets in TF2 of flags that are similar to the ones found in Team Fortress Classic. They feature the faces of Robin Walker and John Cook respectively, both of whom are developers of TF2. Heavy X Medic. This is a very popular shipping in TF2, most likely popularized by Meet the Medic. The voice actors of the Heavy Medic seem to like it. They even did a stream together in costume, giving advice on love and relationships in 2023. Man, the voice actors of TF2 are such legends, it's so awesome. Comic artist Makani seems to support it as well. Some art of hers seems quite suggestive between the two of them. She's also drawn Medic with her supposed wife though, so it's unclear, and also never fully confirmed in the comics. True believers don't need proof though. Yoms. Yoms is the name of a competitive TF2 player and streamer who was part of the Froyo Tech team in which Benny also is in. He sadly passed away in 2020 however. We don't know what the exact cause was exactly and I don't want to speculate. All that is to say is, rest in peace Yoms. Cool beans on Banana Bay. One patch note of the map Banana Bay simply stated, cool beans. You can find these in multiple spots around the map. They are indeed very cool.
TF2 versus Overwatch. From the moment Blizzard unveiled Overwatch, people instantly started comparing it to TF2. The comparisons made sense because Overwatch was inspired by TF2 heavily, having classes with distinct personalities, design, reserved weaponry, and a cartoon art style with game modes. And game modes that were found between the two series and also happen to have a fandom passionate about the series' men. TF2 and Overwatch are very different games in practice than they sound on paper, but the obvious inspiration makes both to be the butt of the jokes, and petty wins over the other randomly. I prefer TF2 to Overwatch because I'm less a fan of OW's style. Both are fine. Play whatever. Maybe don't play Overwatch considering Blizzard is a really sucky company. But that's your choice.
Speedruns. TF2 is not a traditional speedrun game, given it's a multiplayer team-based shooter. People have come up with ways to do it though. The main one being to speedrun the basic training course. There's other speedruns to be found on YouTube as well, like someone speedrunning all TF2 achievements, which took 50 days. Space gravity. RD Asteroid was initially planned to have low gravity in certain areas. There is even a sound for this transition. The code for the space gravity logic was found in the 2020 code-based leak. It's commented out though. Manco painting set. This is an item that gives the player 3 random paint cans that are used to color cosmetics. It doesn't contain all colors, only those that are also obtainable as random drops. These were unboxable from crate 57, which doesn't drop anymore and hasn't in 12 years. So I'm actually quite surprised that the 56 lives remaining of this item aren't even $5. Seems like they're way more valuable, just as a collector's item. The mercs have personalized teeth. Every class of TF2 has their own modeled and textured teeth. Well, outside of the Pyro, obviously. If you want a detailed look at this, you can check out Funky's video on his second channel in which he reviews all of them. Legacy paints. I think this is referring to a very old bug with the Team Spirit paint. The Team Spirit paint colors are cosmetic depending on the team you're on, so it's either red or blue. There used to be a glitch where only the red color was seen on the item in the backpack, but it worked in-game as it was supposed to. After this was fixed, every old Team Spirit item lost the description that it was painted in the first place, but kept the paint. Rarer than this, there are very few Team Spirit items that are missing the red paint, and this actually affects the game, where it will be blue when playing on blue team, but won't have any color on the other. It is said that less than 5 of these exist for each team paint. There are a few more items that could be painted for a while but had the feature removed afterwards. Any paint that was applied beforehand would stay though. The cow mangler technically falls into this. Level 6. Haunted. We've officially made it through half the categories. At this point I had no idea about any of these really. Unless you've literally studied TF2 and its comics since the dawn of time, then you likely won't know about at least 90% of these entries. Let me hand back the mic to Golek for now though.
Saxton Hale invented the internet. This entry most likely refers to a misconception that some people think Saxton Hale invented the internet. He did not. This 100% is because someone misinterpreted this post from the 2012 Manconomy update, which introduced everything we're familiar with, including hats, guns, crates, the Manco store, and even Steam trading. The wording that most likely got misinterpreted was in this page here, where Saxton Hale states that he just found out that the internet is a thing that exists. He didn't find out what the internet was until Guerrilla Wrestling Fridays, when one of his employees who was about to die from a gorilla told Saxton to email his mother he loves her, and then died. Saxton said, "Quickly, somebody get me an email." Classic Saxton Hale. This is when his employees explained to him what the internet was, and since then he's become the owner of England, got contacted by an anagram website who anagrammed his name, which he was very pissed about and called them perverts. Most likely because Saxton Hale can be an anagram for, prepare yourself for this, hot anal sex. It doesn't really say that this is what it was, but it's gotta be it. And lastly, he created the Manco store.
Amelia Earhart's skeleton. In one of the TF2 comics, the scout puts on a hot dog costume he found on a crashed plane. A crashed plane that supposedly belongs to Amelia Earhart. He proceeds to shake the bones out of the costume as he walks through the cold. Amelia Earhart, for those that don't know, is a real-life pilot from the early 20th century. She was notably the first female pilot to fly across the Atlantic. While attempting to be the first woman to fly around the entire world in 1937, she disappeared over the Pacific Ocean, and neither her body nor plane have ever been found. A likely theory for the real-life Amelia Earhart is that she was stranded on Nikomaroro Island and eaten by coconut crabs. Or even more likely, she simply crashed somewhere in the millions of square miles of ocean and sunk. But this is just a theory. A game theory! Unusual Max's severed head. Back when Valve gave out an unusual of any head to people who found exploits, one person wished for an unusual Sunbeam's Max's severed head. Most notable about this head is that it can be worn with any other head, and as it is a promo item, you can't get it in unusual form. I think if you asked most TF2 traders what item they would like to have if it would just spawn in their inventory, it might just be this one. Poopy Joe Summoning Circle. This is a thing that exists on the Banana Bay map. I hope it works, rest in peace Poopy Joe. Killstreak Bonk Helm. This could refer to two things. There is no Bonk Helm Killstreak kit that ever dropped. I have talked about universal Killstreak kits earlier though, which could of course also be applied to this hat, but this goes for any item. What is more special is that if you have a Killstreak bonk weapon, the sheen on that bonk can also appear on the bonk cans on the hat. This is likely not intended, but it's likely just not worth the hassle to fix it. So this bug exists to this day. Glitched spot on Yukon. This is likely referring to this out of bounds spot you can reach on Yukon, that you can reach with a singular rocket jump. You can even build here. Robo Samurai Demo's half Satoishi error. I have no idea what this is referring to. There are Robo Samurai Demo men that use the half Satoishi in MVM. Two different variants actually, one of which only appears on one wave of one mission. But there is no error I can find. They are even holding their sword correctly. So this is the first entry where I have to just give up and say that I have no idea what this is about. If I find out, I will put it in the description. Robin Walker's Primeval Warrior. The Primeval Warrior is a badge for people who played TF2 in the pre-game release beta testing phase, which was a span of 3 weeks. The description of it features the exact time that the person earning it first launched the game. The one that Robin Walker owns is special though. His date shows August 23rd, 1998, which is the 2-year anniversary date of the Team Fortress Quake mod. It is also exactly 2 years before Robin Walker got hired at Valve. so it's unknown why it's this date specifically. Painted Pencil Pusher and Lucky Shot. As alluded to earlier, these are 2 items that could only be painted for a limited amount of time. There are none I could find for sale currently, though they'd likely be quite valuable. More so the Lucky Shot though, since that one could only be painted for 24 hours and a suspected 5 exist in total. The Pencil Pusher could be painted for about 4 months, and thus around 100 are estimated to exist. Flying Bits Particle Effect. This effect is only meant to be used on burning gibs and dead bodies. It is however also the effect used on certain Valve quality weapons. Claude Huggins. This is the name of the founder of Two-Fort in the TF2 lore. He survived a bear attack by hiding under the mauled corpse of his wife. This spot is also exactly where he founded the Two-Fort settlement. Aussie Medigun/wrench not dropping. In 2020 there was a bug for a few months where Australian Mediguns and wrenches did not drop. This was fixed in the same year. Why this happened is unknown. Scout prevented Earth's destruction. In the comic where Scout is talking to God, he talks God out of literally exploding the Earth. So in a sense this is true, Scout saved Earth. Condition 49. I talked about the add cont command earlier, which gives you a condition depending on the number you enter, like different kinds of ubers, speed effects, magic effects, and anything else you can think of that changes or affects the player. Add cont 49 gives you a very interesting effect though. If you are to crouch after entering this command, you will turn into a dispenser for the enemy team. We'll get into why this exists later down the iceberg. Unused GRU Skull Effect. GRU refers to Gloves of Running Urgently. My favorite heavy melee, even though it's awful. While using it, you are marked for death, meaning all damage you take are mini crits. Players are notified of this by a skull appearing above the player's head. There are however unused particles that would have shown the skull in team colors, which is slightly redundant to say the least, since you can already see the player's color below. They eventually settled for a white one for both teams, the yen symbol under Badlands and Hydro. Both Badlands and Hydro feature a yen symbol hidden in the map. For any CSGO players, you may remember the similar symbol hidden in the Cobblestone map. All of these are signatures of the Valve mapper Lika Kerenen. It's very normal for mappers to leave a signature somewhere on the map. Scrap weapon attributes. There are way too many to name here. A lot of unused effects or conditions given by weapons were discovered over the years. If you are super interested in this specific topic, I will link a 20-minute Skyman video in the description and the top right corner right now, which goes in depth on this topic. Just to name you one effect I found most interesting, it's Reveal Cloaked Victim on Hit and Reveal Disguised Victim on Hit, which would likely have been an original effect of the Pomson 6000. Earbuds removed self-illumination. The earbuds used to glow for a very short time. This was reverted in 2010. Abe Lincoln's death was a cover-up. Abraham Lincoln's official death reason in the lore is that he died while doing a rocket jump, which everyone used to do before he invented stairs. However, there is also this artwork of John Tower of Heads Booth found on the first day of the Engineer Updates blog post. A wanted poster to be exact, hinting that he murdered Abraham Lincoln just like he did in real life, and that the rocket jump accident was thus a cover-up. TF2 MMO strings. TF2 code diggers found out about heads before they actually released. So as a joke, Valve left some lines hinting at an MMO system for TF2 for these code diggers to find. No TF2 MMO was ever planned as far as we know though. Removed slot tokens. We talked about slot tokens earlier that are used to craft weapons of specific slots. There are some that went unused though, either because the slots were removed entirely or because they never made other weapons for those slots. We got the PDA and building slot, which seem to be the same thing in some regard, a head slot, which may have been needed to craft heads originally, and a grenade slot, grenades being weapons that were planned for TF2 for a long while before eventually being removed. Voodoo Cursed Heavy Soul Unused Green Bandolier. This is the cosmetic that turns the heavy into a zombie. The texture file for this cosmetic includes a green colored bandolier, but the bandolier itself is disabled while this cosmetic is equipped. However, if you play this game in very old graphic settings by using DirectX 8, all the carves into the bodies and missing body parts won't be applied on yourself, even while using the souls, which allows you to see this otherwise unseeable texture.
Mercs have specific dates for their deaths. This one comes from the TF2's comics, and the clearest example is the Naked and the Dead comic, where Scout is told by a god, he'll see you on December 4th, 1987. Fans take this as the official date as to when Scout dies. For the other mercs, we don't really have exact dates, only Scout's date is actually confirmed.
Unused grenade weapons. As just mentioned a few entries ago, grenades were planned for TF2, just like they exist in Team Fortress Classic. Every class would have had a main frag grenade and a secondary class-specific grenade. There would have been a concussion grenade for the Scout, a nail grenade for the Soldier, a napalm grenade for the Pyro, MIRV grenade for Demo Man and Heavy, EMP grenade for Engineer, heal grenade for the Medic, a gas grenade for the Spy, and of course the frag grenade for all classes as mentioned. Outside of the Scout, interestingly enough, these grenades also appear on the Soldier's Belt and the MVM upgrade store. Furthermore, there was a Bear Trap grenade for the Scout, also seen in the MVM upgrade store, the smoke bomb for the spy, and 2 grenades for which the class is unknown, which are a teleport grenade and a chain grenade. The teleport grenade would have teleported the thrower to wherever the grenade landed, like a Minecraft Ender Pearl. The chain grenade would have sucked enemies in. The reason we know so much about them is that these seemingly made it very far into development. Some had assets made and some lines made it to the final game files, including unused grenade commands. We even see the demo man use one in the trailer. Vintage shortstop. There exists one singular vintage shortstop. Again, this is a remnant of Steam support restoring items in vintage quality, and it seemed to happen only a singular time for the shortstop before Valve stopped doing it. The Patriot, Celtic Crown, and Krankensäge. A Steam user called Mr. Roizo made a fan update called Fancy vs Nasty, consisting of a bunch of weapons, hats, and a storyline. Valve was so impressed by this that in the Australian Christmas and Replay update, they included most of these items officially in the game. This includes items like the Boston Basher, Back Scratcher, Fists of Steel, and a bunch of cosmetic items. However, 3 items didn't make it: the Patriot hat, the Celtic Crown hat, and the Krankensäge. Why this happened is unknown. We know, however, that the Krankensäge was at least tested in the game before being scrapped. Either way, what a huge achievement for this fan update creator to have all this included in the game. Unused spawn room turret. Team Fortress Classic includes spawn room turrets, meant to solve the problem of spawn camping to some degree. Multiple turrets were designed for TF2 but scrapped, with only the texture file remaining in most cases. One of these turrets was added in the Pyro update many years later as a prop on Mercenary Park. It's likely that these were also meant to be used in spawn rooms just like in TFC. Level 7. Unusual. To perhaps help introduce this category, I was personally only vaguely aware of 2 entries in this category of like 30 to 40 entries. I'm gonna let GridHouse start this one.
Unused Spy Training Mode. TF2 has a training mode to teach new players. In the game files, there are leftover strings and assets for a spy training mission that was never finished or was never made available. So this is a piece of cut content.
Orbit Shells Unusual Effect. There's an unused Orbiting Shells Unusual Effect. It would have shown bullet casings flying around the cosmetic it's applied to. This effect looks pretty bad, so it's good it went unused if you ask me. Unusual Cheater's Lament. This is another head only made possible by Valve granting any unusual of a player's choice for finding exploits. In this case, it's the Unusual Cheater's Lament. The Cheater's Lament was given to every player in 2009 that had not used any idling programs and played at least once. This head, interestingly enough, comes with a built-in glow effect. The Unusual Cheater's Lament effect is sunbeams, meaning it now has a double glow. Quite an insane unusual to have, especially given that it's all class. All class Nano Balaclava. The Nano Balaclava is a spy-only cosmetic. You can, however, find a model of it for every class in the game files. Flares That Care. This is the name of a TF2 charity event that took place successfully in 2014, but under new leadership in 2015 and unfortunately ended up being a scam. It was cancelled before it happened. I'm unable to find info on if the host managed to scam any items or money in the 2015 event, but they were definitely scamming people in the past. After the fail of this event, an event called TF2 Can was launched, which managed to raise $9,000 for the Child's Play charity. Simple Helm, Big Mean Mother Hubbard, and Heraldic Targe. These are items referenced in the files of Sigrud Keep that we otherwise know nothing about. The Simple Helm would have been a cosmetic item. The Big Mean Mother Hubbard was a primary weapon for the engineer that was being tested at one point, and the Heraldic Targe was to be another shield for the demo man. The model of the Heraldic Targe is apparently very similar to the original Chargent Targe, and had space for a decal to be applied on the inside of the shield. I say apparently because, even though this is stated as a fact in the Team Fortress wiki, I can't find the model or textures that they're talking about anywhere. Bonk Atomic Punch would kill a normal person. If the contents of the Bonk drink can be trusted, it has several hundred times the recommended daily amounts of sugar. It also has 16,000 milligrams of caffeine, 40 times the recommended daily dose. The list of ingredients includes water, radiation, and sugar. The red Bonk also states now with isotopes, and the blue one has the line now with 33% more real radiation. When the Bonk was first invented, according to the Bonk Leadware's description, it was made using zinc, ammonium chloride, molten salt, and sugar. Ammonium chloride is most commonly used as a source of nitrogen in fertilizers, and is not meant for human consumption in high quantities. Uranium and Mirror Bot Killer. Before the Two Cities update, bot killer weapons were the loot people were hoping for, specifically gold, blood, and diamond bot killers, which were preferred over the silver, rust, and carbonado drops. There are unused textures for even more bot killers left in the files though, which include mirror and uranium bot killers. These may have been planned for another MVM tour that never came to be. Dillinger Stuffle Unused Decal Feature. The Dillinger Stuffle is a cosmetic for the Scout. It's a bag filled with money that he carries on his back. Though unused, All the pieces of money are technically able to have a decal placed on them, which would replace the money texture with whatever image you choose. Mecha level 4 Sentry. This entry is basically the same thing as the Robot Sentry boss later down the line that Radiation Hazard will cover, so I'll skip it for now. Unused MVM canteen buffs. Currently you can purchase a crit buff, Uber buff, ammo refill buff and teleport back to spawn buff for your canteen in MVM, allowing you to trigger those buffs at any time you want. There's also one exclusive to the engineer that immediately makes all your buildings jump to level 3, and max health and ammo. There are 2 unused ones that exist in the code however. The first one is called See Cash Through Wall, which is pretty self-explanatory. The other one being Radius Stealth, for which we only have this texture for reference. As to what the effect would have been, there is actually a scrapped Spy Sapper upgrade meant for MVM called Spy Trap. It would have had 4 modes. Reprogrammer mode would allow to reprogram robots to fight for your side for a few seconds, which would also cause them to move 2 times as fast and then run towards the nearest robot to self-detonate. Magnet mode would have attracted nearby robots towards the spy trap and slow them down for a second afterwards. Then there is Repulsor mode, which the user is unknown. Given its name, it likely would have pushed bots away though. And finally there was Radius Stealth mode, which would have cloaked nearby friendly players for 2 seconds. It is to be noted that sappers with this upgrade could be thrown by the spy, meaning it almost acted like an engineer building in a way. Most important takeaway from this right now though is that the Radius Stealth mode is likely what this unused MVM canteen buff would have been.
Postal 3 source code leak. You know what else is leaking? Anyway, on June 11, 2020, Postal 3's Perforce files leaked online. Inside were the game's source code, an early Postal 3 build, unfinished builds of Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2 Episode 2, plus some Source Engine tools.
Mercenary Park unused areas. There are 3 unused rooms in Mercenary Park, with varying degrees of polish. Maps go through a lot of playtesting and thus also adjustments during development, so this isn't super unusual. It's weird that Valve never removed them though, since they're usually very thorough in removing unnecessary parts of the environment. Robot Scout Blueprint. In the background of the Engineer update teaser, you can see a blueprint for the Scout robot. This was part of Valve teasing at the MVM update over the course of years. Greyman's robots have souls. The robots of MVM are made by Greyman, as a way to destroy all things Mancore related. There is a gargoyle item that during Scream Fortress events is able to collect souls, usually only by killing enemies, completing contracts and a few other methods. Interestingly enough, killing robots also gives you a soul for each killed bot, which in turn should mean that the robots have souls. I think currently this is just in a state of maybe canon, since these are interactions Valve probably didn't think about too much. Bounty and Raid game modes. The Bounty mode would have allowed players to collect credits and upgrade their weapons like in MVM in standard matches. The Spy could also attach sappers to enemy players, which is likely just a leftover piece of code from MVM. This mode obviously never ended up going anywhere. A version of it was tested in a video by Shaunik though, in case you wanna check that out. The raid mode would have been somewhat similar to Left 4 Dead in gameplay, where you try and survive hordes of enemy bots. There's a lot of unused content for this, including boss battles and a bunch of AI settings. Scrapped MVM currency variants. I searched far and wide through the wiki, the cutting room floor and even game files. I found nothing relating to this. There is an unused bonus cash feature a bit later on the Iceberg that may relate in some way. Actually, let's quickly jump over there. MVM starting cash bonus feature. There was code found in a 2020 leak that references a starting cash bonus feature for MVM. This feature aimed to encourage players to not queue as a big team, or well, actually not any team at all. For every unique lobby in the game, the player would receive 20% bonus starting cash. If 6 individual random players were present, meaning 6 separate lobbies, that would mean a 100% cash bonus, not 120 since it doesn't count your own lobby. This thankfully went unused because good god, why would you ever disencourage teams in a game called Team Fortress 2? Okay, back to where we were in the Iceberg. MVM Warehouse. This is the name of a very old map of TF2 that was made presumably while testing the MVM game mode. It's a reworked version of TR Target. There are some oddities about it. Red are robots and blue are humans in this map. And there's a reference to a mini tank boss. Unused duck journal textures. The duck journal is an item similar to the gargoyle in principle. Back when the end of the line update dropped, this item allowed you to collect ducks. I'm not here to go into the whole mechanics of the duck item since that's not really the focus right now. What is most important right now is that the duck journal item itself has 2 unused skins. The first skin is a yellow duck, which isn't too dissimilar to the standard duck. The other one, however, looks like this. It includes the words "Let's eat," which are a direct reference to Chica from Five Nights at Freddy's. The duck itself would have been white colored. What exactly the purpose of this is and why it features a Chica reference is completely unknown. Loading screen map thumbnail differences. There are 192 map-specific loading screens in TF2, so obviously there is no time to go through them to compare them all, and really, it is mostly pretty boring. Since pretty much every TF2 map has gotten some adjustments over the years, meaning that it's basically a given that these thumbnails will be different. Just to show you one somewhat interesting oddity though, the loading screen for Arena Badlands actually uses images from the usual CP Badlands, as the fences are missing. Interesting entry, isn't it? Red tape recorder immunity in MVM. I assume this is referring to a rare mechanic. Usually the red tape recorder behaves the same as a regular one in MVM in pretty much all situations. Some MVM missions however feature engineers. They are insanely dangerous, as they will set up a sentry nest to then build a teleporter there, which all bots will then spawn at instead of the regular spawn, meaning that you have way less time to take out the robots before they make it to the bomb patch. Obviously the red tape recorder doesn't damage buildings, but instead reverses their levels as it usually does, which is just a worse version of the sapper. Interestingly enough however, if you sap a robot engineer's teleporter using the red tape recorder, they will never attempt to remove it, meaning that you are guaranteed to destroy the teleporter if you manage to sap it. Spy isn't usually played in MVM, so this is truly the most niche mechanic of them all, but interesting to know about. Flying giant window prop in TF2 trailer. In the second TF2 trailer, for some reason there is a giant window floating in the middle of 2 fault in one clip. Even though it's so huge, with how quick it happens I doubt most people noticed. Unused throwable weapons. Aside from the unused grenades, there are some more cut throwable weapons found in the code. There is Repel, which is apparently a throwable air blast, so just a knockback grenade essentially. Brick, a throwable brick. Target dummy, which would create a dummy that then explodes. Throwing knife, which would stick out of enemies when they get hit. A snowball, and a paint bomb, which would apparently work similar to how painting works in Splatoon. This one has a ton of leftover code and even some few textures. Spy C-arms dart gun animations. The dart gun is a cut primary for the Spy, a weapon still seen in the TF2 trailer. The model for the Spy's view model still includes animations for the dart gun. Apparently these were only added in the Love and War update, meaning that Valve may have planned to re-add this weapon at some point. This never ended up happening. Tobor. The name Tobor has an interestingly detailed but also insanely irrelevant history in TF2. Valve originally contracted Hidden Path Entertainment to make the training mode, which is where this texture snuck in, called Tobor. Likely some kind of robot meant to be used for training, as Tobor backwards is robot. On another note, for a short while there was also an unused item quality called Tobor A. Also, like talked about previously, Valve hinted at the Man vs Machine update for years. One of these hints was done in a room outside of the playable area in CP Foundry. In this room that has no reason to be detailed at all, you find this sign: Dr. Wilson's Auto Borax Self-Scrubbing Mechanical Soap. This isn't the only place in this map where you find this sign, but here it suspiciously features 2 planks that single out the letters Tobor, which, if you reverse them, spells out robot. This is a pretty far-fetched clue. But there are more clues hidden in this map that hint at these robots, like this out-of-bounds room featuring the Heavy and Scout looking at images of robots, with numbers behind them that spell out MVM, if you take the corresponding letters. MVM to this day is also referred to as Tobor when your computer communicates with the Steam matchmaking servers. There was also an ARG that featured this image where some letters were covered by blood, which again spell out Tobor. Going on teamfortress.com/Tobor also redirects you to the MVM update page. And lastly, in the 2025 SFM leak, the model for Tobor was finally discovered. Tobor looks like a lawnmower of sorts with a camera on it. Insanely irrelevant as I said, but I know you guys would probably love it nonetheless. Nursey. Nursey is a pro TF2 player that used to play for Froyotech. He was banned in 2019 however for allegedly having sexual talks with minors. What a way to end this category. Level 8, Collectors. Genuinely, I knew about none of these, which makes it even better. Let's get right into it. Unused MVM difficulty. In a code leak from 2020, a piece of code is found that describes the difficulties of MVM. At this point, the plan was to simply increase the bot's health and damage. This also includes 5 difficulties instead of the 4 we know of, which are Easy, Intermediate, Advanced and Expert. It is also possible that this was never related to MVM as we know it now, but instead a very early test game mode called Creep Mode that would end up becoming MVM. Strange Unique and Strange Normal items. Strange Unique items are items that have a yellow name but are functionally a strange weapon. This was caused by a bug introduced with the Scream Fortress 2016 update. Any acquired item that should have been strange quality ended up being a Strange Unique instead. This bug was quickly fixed. Strange Normals are the same as Strange Uniques, but the name is actually grey. These could be acquired after the Gunmetal update for a short amount of time, where creating strange stock weapons by either opening crates or receiving them as drops made them strange normal items. This means that there are a few normal, strange Australian weapons. Goes without saying that all the items I talked about in this entry are worth quite a lot because of their rarity. Unused Demo Man Polaroid picture for Meet the Sniper. Meet the Sniper features this shot that shows a few Polaroid text next to the sniper's mirror, targets he plans on taking out. And although in the following scene he does take out a Demo Man, he's not seen on these Polaroids. And to be upfront, I didn't manage to track down a perfect source for this, but I did find this Reddit post that allegedly showcases the Polaroid model used in Meet the Sniper featuring an image of the blue Demo Man, among many others. Looking in SFM myself, I did not have this model, so I have no idea where this user got this model from. But this seems to be what this entry is referring to. Man, we really are deep down the iceberg, huh? Cut Soldier Rocket Jumping Training Course. I mentioned earlier that Hidden Path Entertainment made the few TF2 training maps. In the 2023 Repo leak, a lot more were discovered. Here's a full list of all the training maps that were in development. What this entry is referring to is the different maps involving rocket jumps. These maps were still early into development, and honestly it simply makes me sad that we never got this expanded training mode. Interestingly enough, outside of a few videos from Shonik that take a look at aspects of these maps, nobody seems to have ever done a full detailed video taking a look at all the Repo League maps. If you guys wanna see me do that, let me know. Charge and Touch unused textures. The backpack image of the Charge and Touch shows an unused blue skin. In-game it's yellow on both teams. Also worth noting is that the festive Charge and Touch is able to be painted texture-wise, but it was simply never implemented. Whoa, who the f*** are you? This refers to the whole uncut voice line for the scout in Meet the Medic before he gets blown up by rockets. Here's the full, only slightly censored version, just to make sure I get paid for this video.
Whoa, who the fuck are you?
The voice line wasn't made for this video, but it's just recycled for it. Explains why it says who instead of what or something. Alternate deathcam UI. Another unused asset of TF2. It seems that the original idea for the deathcam was to have a picture of your killer land on a pile of other pictures. This model is still found in the files alongside a few animations, but ultimately went unused.
Robot Sentry Boss. This comes from the early man vs. machine prototypes. Back when Valve was experimenting with the mode, they had a huge robotic sentry gun boss, sometimes called the Mecha Level 4 Sentry. It was basically a giant robot sentry that acted as a boss fight. It never made it into the final game, but parts of it inspired the Sentry Buster and other big robots.
Miss Pauling in Purgatory. Miss Pauling presumably died for a brief moment in the comics. She was then presumably placed into Purgatory for a short moment. In her case, it was a desert with a singular door, behind which the administrator was sitting in a room, but with all the cameras pointing at herself. It's the administrator that notes that they're both currently dead. There's a bit of story-relevant dialogue before she wakes up again thanks to the medic. It's unknown if this truly was Purgatory, but heaven and hell do exist in TF2, and thus we can presume every piece of afterlife in the comics to be real. I'm not 1000% certain this is what this entry is referring to, but I wouldn't know what else it could be. Unused war paints. Here they are. The completely blue bottom ones are normal maps, which are used to store information about a surface in the form of a texture, which are the only leftovers we have of the unused Butcher Bird and Killer Bee skin. Unused drum solo music. You're currently hearing an unused soundtrack called Bonus Round Music. It's unknown what exactly this would have been used for. Honestly, simply from hearing it, my silly idea for it would be a surprise bonus round at the end of an MVM wave. For each one you kill, you get a bit of bonus money, and you only get like 30 seconds to find them. Unusual Ghastlyerist Gibbous. I'm repeating myself. Someone found an exploit and as a reward chose this hat as their unusual. Files for taunts found before being added in-game. The animation for the High Five taunt was added in the 2009 War update. The actual taunt was only added 2 years later. Just classic Valve, really.
TF2, Brotherhood of Arms. That was the name for the original version of Team Fortress 2. First shown to the public at E3 1999, it sported insanely complicated gameplay relative to TF2's taunt at the enemy and win mechanics. A realistic military shooter where each class had to work in a team in order to win, with a commander class specifically to give people orders in battle. They scrapped the game after a while for a number of reasons, but one of the bigger ones ended up being nobody listened to the commander, which made the entire gameplay flow grind to a halt. Medics could only heal, they couldn't attack. There was an officer class who led squads on the battlefield. Vehicles appeared as enemies and allies. There was a squad morality system and even more grounded art direction than Half-Life would be. I'm really thankful they looked towards the cartoony 70s in the end. TF2 ended up being a bright, shining, and most importantly colorful light in the 2000s amongst the tons of modern military shooters. Brotherhood of Arms being cancelled wasn't the end for the cancelled TF projects, though, like this one with Aliens vs. Humans leaked in 2004 with Half-Life 2 assets. That's a story for someone who knows what word they're gonna say next, unlike me, who never does. Gazebo. Thank you.
Unusual spine-chilling skull. Exploit reward head. Very cool. Unused rotating birthday cake effect. An unused particle effect that was presumably either meant as an unusual effect or to be used while wearing pyrovision in some form. Unused Jungle Inferno Contractor music. There are a lot of unused tracks meant to be played while browsing the Jungle Inferno Contractor. They consist of songs that already exist in the soundtrack, but with certain instruments stripped. There are also TV variants for all of them that make the sound more lo-fi, like they're playing from an old speaker, fitting to the aesthetic of the Contractor. Unused temporary dispenser screen. This refers to this texture, likely originally meant to appear for a frame or two while the dispenser built itself. Normal quality Australian grenade launcher. As mentioned earlier, there are a few normal quality Australiums. This is one of them. Unused MVM buyback feature. Currently you can choose to buy yourself back to life in MVM for $5 per second left to respawn. Code leaks revealed that at one point, this feature was meant to work differently. It's unclear how exactly it would have worked, but it wouldn't be currency based and you had limited buybacks per round. Medigun healing NG's buildings. This is not a feature that exists in TF2 currently, but there was code in the 2020 leak that refers to the Medigun being able to heal buildings. It is most likely that this was planned as an upgrade to the Medigun in MVM. Normal quality Master's Yellow Belt. It's unclear how this head exists, but it does. A normal quality Master's Yellow Belt, likely created by Steam support. Pyroland themed thermal thruster. The thermal thruster was originally planned to feature a Pyroland themed version of itself, the texture of which can still be found in these files. Sadly and for unknown reasons it went unused. Flag-based attack/defense game mode. This is not a usual game mode seen in TF2, but it is featured in a community map, CTF Har, a map made in 2010 that got added into TF2 in 2023. Mostly it's like a regular attack-defense map. Blue attacks and has to capture 2 points to win. The difference being that you don't capture these points by standing on them for a while, but rather by bringing an intelligence to them. The intelligence spawns in front of blue spawn. It's an interesting map for sure, but also not super well balanced. Given it was made in 2010, I will give it a pass though.
Gaben's 10,000 Southern Hospitalities. With a title like that, you must be asking yourself what the heck it even means, right? Well, at least I did. Apparently there's this wrench in the game called the Southern Hospitality created by a community member called Watchmaker. It was added to the game on July 8th, 2010 with the engineer update, after which the TF2 item store also opened up. The creator of the weapon didn't earn all that much money from his creation at first, but was still really happy to just have it included in the game. So happy in fact that he ended up sending Gabe Newell an email thanking him. A week goes by and suddenly Watchmaker gets a paycheck exceeding over $5,000. Apparently, Gabe Newell went out of his way to buy around 10,000 Southern Hospitalities after receiving the creator's thank you letter. Now that is a nice payday. If this is all true, then that's of course pretty amazing. But since the source of this story is just a 4chan post, it's hard to know if it all really happened. So take this entry with a little bit of a grain of salt.
The Commander. This was a class planned for TF2. A non-physical one. It could oversee the map, provide air support and place buildings. It turned out however during development that this was simply too big of a challenge to implement in a fun and satisfying way. Thus it was scrapped. The Commander ended up becoming the now defunct coaching system. Self-made Max's Severed Head and Big Kill. People that worked on Sam and Max the Devil's Playhouse and thus this head received a self-made one directly from Valve. At least some of the few that exist were sold before. So if you're super rich, you maybe have a chance of getting one yourself. Inspector Heavy. I believe this is referring to this 15-year-old Reddit post of the same name. It's a small comic. Here it is with bad sentence mixing.
This man has been stabbed in the back! What do you think of Austin's character? What? He is spy! No! His character. Harry!
Upgrade Station Music. This entry refers to the scrapped Upgrade Station music track. This piece would have been played every time a user used the Upgrade Station in an MVM map. Of course, this doesn't play in the vanilla version of the game, but the song was left in the music files as a seemingly complete piece. While it is ultimately unknown why it was cut, some of the developers have been asked about the matter. So, in the files, there is an unused upgrade station song, and I was wondering if you guys knew why that went unused.
That's a good question. I'm not sure myself. They probably misreferencing it. Possibly, yeah, just to get the right range on the hookups.
Okay.
That would be a great question for Eric Smith. We'll ask him.
Yeti on Snowy Coast. I have no idea what this is referring to. Snowy Coast is set in an Arctic environment, but there has never been mention of a Yeti on the map from all I can tell. It's possible that the author of this Iceberg mistook the map here again, as the map Snowplow does feature a Yeti. Well, at least a cardboard cutout of one. 10th class. We talked about multiple scrap classes, both joke ones and actual real ones. The scrap civilian, commander, the joke madcap, and the somewhat 10th class of Saxon Hale. There is even a grave you can find on certain maps that says RIP the 10th class. And the Left 4 Dead cereal box advertises to collect all 10 figurines. But really, we have nothing of the sort that will ever release. Robin Walker, one of the creators of TF2, made a joke in an interview once saying that the 10th class would have been a giant, walking brick that crushes you and stands in hallways. Something TF2 tuber Shownick actually made for a video and tested on his own server to see if it's actually viable in gameplay. I don't want to spoil the video, since it is a very interesting watch.
Old Sandman stun mechanic. Back when Scout's favorite ball that puts the ball in baseball bat was first introduced, it had this funny little thing about it where it would stun hit enemies. It still does this, but back then the stun would completely immobilize a player with no damage decrease, meaning if you get hit once by a Sandman wielding Scout, you're, to put it bluntly, fucked. One might even call you base boned. Hey, is that a sniper dot on my head? Eventually they fixed this, so now the Sandman is insanely weakened as a result, but much better overall.
Level 9, Self-Made. At this point, I'm impressed if anyone actually knew about any of these already. And this isn't even the last category. For now, I'm gonna let Skyman finally settle everything related to the Groot Keep.
Unused Groot Keep scroll and ticket booth. According to the Australian Christmas update page, the Groot Keep is supposed to take place in the 10th century, all because Soldier angered Marasmus. However, there are a number of props, both visible in the map and unused, that contradict the 10th century claim. Outside of computer terminals visible within the map, there are two notable items that ultimately went unused on the map, but were found to be connected. The first was a ticket booth. If the booth had been officially included, it would have categorized the map as an amusement park, given its modern sign design. The second wouldn't have necessarily indicated the chronology of the map, but may have actually hinted towards a cut mechanic. In the files, a pickup scroll item was found within the material files for the map. There is no known mechanic connected to it, so it's entirely unknown if it was a new exclusive gameplay element or potentially just an ammo or health pack reskin. We may never know.
Other non-normal, normal quality items. There are a lot of glitched normal items, many of which are of unknown origin. This Steam guide made a great list, one of the more explained ones being the normal quality Bat Saber, which were glitched unboxes when the creator contained them first released. Some more items include the Black Rose, Earbuds, Purity Fist, Soldier Stash, Doy Specs, Frying Pan, Professor Specs, Pretty Boy Pocket Pistol, and Alice Cap. Notably it says, and some weapons, which likely includes the normal Australian weapons and more. Unused female head texture. There is this texture found in the TF2 files. Its use is unknown, though there's a theory on it and only a bit.
Unused administrator voice lines in Meet the Spy. When Meet the Spy was leaked before its official release, there were a few differences in the voice lines. Some of the administrators' lines were different, and the leaked version even had some duplicate alerts.
A red spy is in the base. Protect the briefcase. Access granted. Intruder alert. Protect the briefcase. Briefcase room unlocked. Briefcase room unlocked.
Excellent. We're done. Thank you very much.
On top of that, data miners have found unused administrator voice lines in TF2's game data.
Kill them. Slaughter them like dogs. Spare no one. Gut them like fattened hogs. You butcher.
Disabled SMG headshot ability. There is code found in a leak that hints at the ability of the SMG to be able to headshot. This would obviously be insanely OP. Spy's unused face cloaking watch. Leaked code hints at a scrapped spy watch that would allow you to face cloak, which would seemingly allow you to walk through objects and players. If you were to uncloak inside an object or player, you would be telefragged. It would also give you a slight speed boost. Decoy spy weapon. This unused spy weapon would have likely allowed you to throw a clone of yourself. The clone would continue to run in the same direction as the player that threw it. We only know some code leaks of it. Spy traps and MVM. I talked about these in an earlier entry. A SEPA upgrade using MVM that had different modes of functionality. Radius stealth, magnet, repulse and reprogram. Official female soldier model. This model was leaked, a female soldier model. It could be that the leaked female face texture belongs to this model. Paint can item. There exists a theoretical base paint can that you are not supposed to be able to get, since every paint can has to have a color assigned to it. You can however see this theoretical item in the Manco catalog, a rarely used feature of TF2 that you can find in your items menu. Here you can find the base paint can item. Back when I first started TF2, I would browse this catalog so often to just look at all the items that exist. Good times, though back then it was only about half the amount of pages. Unusual Ebenizer. Steam support grant. Unused MVM robots. Another thing I used to do a lot in my childhood. Look at all the possible MVM robots. And interestingly enough, there are a lot of unused bot types set up in the code of TF2 that ended up going unused. A lot of them are just variants with small changes of existing ones. Though some more interesting ones include the Heavy Mittens Heavy Bot, Jarati Sniper Bots, and the aforementioned Blimp Boss, Dark Knight Boss. Speaking of unused MVM bots, the Dark Knight is an experimental boss from MVM back when it was still called Raid Mode. It was meant as a replacement for the Mecha level 4 Sentry. It would have been a large, grey, faceless, armored demo man. It would have been invulnerable unless stunned, in which case it would take 1000% damage, which you could do by hitting specific body parts on the boss. You would need to hit 3 of these special body part shots in a row to successfully stun the boss. Kinda sounds like an old school platformer boss fight. There would have also been a mini-boss version of it, which was supposedly a grey sentry buster-like creature. Unusual Head of Undeniable Wealth and Respect. Steam support grant. Shred Alert unused taunt kill. The Shred Alert is one of my favorite taunts, and it seemingly was meant to do damage at some point. There is an unused kill icon found in the game files. The particles for this emote are also called BL_killtaunt.pcf, further implying that it would have been able to kill enemies. It would probably have been the finale of the taunt, but was likely considered a bit too OP for a simple taunt. Liquor Locker's unused walking SFX. This cosmetic was originally gonna give you unique walking sound effects, which according to the wiki were pitch-shifted versions of the knife sound effects from the Spy. I searched the web and the files far and wide and didn't find them, so I guess here's an approximate of how it would have sounded I made by pitching knife sounds. Kinda sounds like doo-doo. Unused Dynamite Zapper. This would have been a piece of dynamite you could apply to buildings. When exploded, it would have done damage based on the buildings, or likely also robots, current health. Attempting to remove the zapper would also blow it up, which is a weird way of balancing it. The detonation time would always be the same amount of time a regular zapper would take to destroy the building. It seemingly also used the Sentry Buster's explosion. If you had a few buildings placed next to another, you could straight up nuke the whole map with that. Unseen Repair Node Broken Sign Texture. We talked about the unused Repair Node building earlier. The model was found in the game files, but the texture was discovered in a leak. Interestingly enough, this leaked texture of an unused building contains an unused texture, a small piece of paper that says broken. Minion NPC. There is only a singular sound file name we know of that refers to a minion NPC. TF Sound NPC, Minion Start Build. A few more sound definition names were also found though, including Minion Ping Roam, Minion Ping Acquire, Minion Bounce, Minion Explode, Minion Charge Up Stun, and Minion Building. What exactly this NPC would have been or what it would have done is unknown. It was planned for MVM back when it was still called Raid Mode though. Scrap minimap and icons. There are a few minimap icons, hinting at a minimap being planned for TF2. They could also be leftover assets back from when the commander was still being made. Unused MVM upgrades. We talked about some of the canteen buffs previously. There are also some regular unused upgrades referenced in the code though. The Scout's Scattergun had an upgrade that would allow him to teleport 192 units horizontally by double tapping movement keys, with a cooldown of 2 seconds. The Soldier's rocket launcher would give the soldier 10 times increased air control and fall damage immunity, and firing a rocket while rocket jumping would propel you in the opposite direction of the rocket. The Pyro's flamethrower would have had an upgrade to give the Pyro a rocket pack that sends him flying in the direction he's looking, also giving you fall damage immunity while stunning robots nearby where you land. The stun lasting 1 and 3 seconds depending on how much damage you would have taken from the fall. Stomping a robot would stun it for 5 seconds. This was likely reworked into the thermal thruster. The Demoman's Charge and Touch had an upgrade to increase the damage dealt from shield impacts. which is in no way worth not taking the regular stickies. Seriously, it's the most useful weapon in MVM. The Medigun would have had 2 upgrades, one being to allow you to heal friendly engineers' buildings as previously mentioned, and one that gives the medic a permanent projectile shield. The sniper rifle would have received a feature to make the sniper cloak after 2 seconds of standing still while scoped, which gets removed if you move. The huntsman would have shot 2 additional arrows with a random horizontal spread per update tick. And lastly, the spy sapper had 2 upgrades that we also discussed previously, one being to allow the spy to walk through robots, have damage immunity while cloaked, and decloaking inside robots with telefrag them. The other one being to unlock the spy's PDA that allows him to place traps. If you wanna see these upgrades in action, I can only recommend checking out Basil's video on the topic on his channel. The video is only a month old as of me writing this. Unused Badlands textures. There are a lot of unused textures for CP Badlands found in the files. Here's some of them on screen right now. It seems that this map would have had way more of a technology vibe originally. Spy's original, the Python revolver. After the tranquilizer gun was scrapped and the idea for the revolver came up, this Python revolver model was first used. This of course ended up being changed.
Unusual golden frying pan. A TF2 player once received an unusual golden frying pan from Valve after beating cancer, making it one of the rarest and most meaningful items in the entire game.
Plain orange and purple skeletons. There are 3 unused skeletons in the TF2 files. A plain one, an orange glowing one, and a purple glowing one. Early gunmetal key texture. A leak showed us an old texture of the gunmetal key. It looked mostly the same. The writing was different however, saying mandate instead of gunmetal. Scout's unused Mac 10. At one point there were plans to give the Scout a Mac 10. This is an image of that model. Revolver sniper rifle. There are leftover animations in the game files referring to a revolver sniper rifle. In a leak we got some more info on it. It would have been a low damage weapon with a fast attack speed ability. It would deal 40 damage when not scoped, 50 damage when scoped and not fully charged, and 75 when fully charged. The fast attack speed ability would reduce time between shots from 1.5 to 0.3 seconds. It would have also been a projectile-based weapon instead of a hit scan one. Overall, this weapon sounds awful for a sniper's main weapon. Maybe it would be an interesting secondary. Scrap teleporter variants. There are 2 unused teleporter variants. The catapult would have launched players forward and slightly upward, increasing with the level of the teleporter. And there's the speed path, which would have granted a speed boost to any teammate who walked over it. It would also be cheaper than the standard teleporter, costing only 25 metal. Upgrading it would also only cost 100 metal. The speed effect would have lasted 4, 5 and 6 seconds depending on the level, and would take 1.67, 1.33 and 1 second to recharge respectively. Different engineer buildings are seriously the coolest thing ever, and the cut content I'm most sad about. Vintage class and weapon tokens. Class and weapon tokens are required for certain crafting recipes. Vintage ones are not supposed to exist. So these were likely granted by Steam support back in the day. I do wonder why vintage metals were so high up and vintage tokens are so insanely much lower down. What is true is that less of these exist, simply due to these being less used, and thus being scammed and restored less than regular metals back in the day. Scrapped stamp pin. The stamp pin was supposed to be a cosmetic item for all classes that could be customized using the decal tool. Not a whole lot of things to say about this one. Marksman. Not to be confused with the Marksman cosmetic. Marksman used to be a Gmod artist that, like many online personalities before him and after him, allegedly sexed with minors. Why did the Iceberg creator always end categories on such a depressing note, man? Level 10. Valve. We've made it. The final level. Just like the previous category, I have no idea about any of these entries anymore, and it now also includes a bunch of theories and myths. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing, and also let me know if there's another iceberg out there you want me to cover, preferably one without much overlap. I'll consider doing a part 2 sometime. Without further ado, let's get right into it. The TF2 story will never be finished. This iceberg was created before the final comic release, not even a year ago as of making this video. So yes, it did end in a sense. The statement remains true in some sense though. Obviously we got the story of the TF2 community and the state of the game that will continue to evolve. And also, it isn't unlikely that we will still get more updates, and perhaps even small comics to accompany it someday in the future. There is a lot of space left in the timeline of events before the final TF2 comic happens. So as long as they don't rule out another update with some story to accompany it, the story continues. We do know the ending now though. Other scrap/experimental weapons. This is a catch-all entry to close any unmentioned scrapped and experimental weapons, of which there are quite a few. We have the sticky ball launcher, of which we only know the name, the dispenser gun, of which we also know basically nothing. It could be that this was an early name for the aforementioned big mean Mother Hubbard weapon though. We have the mini dispenser, which could count as a weapon as it was likely planned for a new slot for the engineer meant for buildings, and a primary mortar launcher for the soldier that would redirect rockets to where you're looking upon right click. There are likely some I'm forgetting, but the most interesting ones are hopefully covered now. Creep game mode. I mentioned this earlier. This was one of the prototypes of MVM. There is little information on this mode. It worked with control points in some way, and there were creep waves, which is likely inspired by Dota 2's idea of creep waves that players kill to progress. Killing 6 creeps in the creep TF2 game mode would level the player. It's possible that some of this was reused eventually in the official MVM map Manhattan, at least the control point aspect of which only exists on this map. Unused dispenser disguise. We talked about condition 49 earlier and how it turns the spy into a dispenser for other players when crouched. More code in regards to this was found in the 2020 leak, where the exact conditions for this to happen are explained further. For the code to activate, you'd have to be a spy, crouching, and have an item with the disguise as dispenser on crouch attribute. Honestly, this is such a funny mechanic. I would really love to see this as an actual feature. Unused stat clock textures. There are some unused textures for stat clocks found in TF2 files. These would display the words error user unknown on the stat clock. This is directly taken from Counter-Strike's stat track weapons, which display the same message when someone else picks up your weapon. Valve Store shipment box. This is a one-time use action item usable by all classes. It is completely unknown what it's supposed to do, and there's also no texture or anything for it. It could be seen in the Manco catalog for not even a day, and every reference to it was removed 2 years later. Birthday tag game mode. It seems that at one point there were plans to have a special piece of gameplay that's enabled on TF2's birthday in regular game modes. One player would be picked to be the birthday player, that would then be given particle effects. If the birthday player kills another player, that player becomes the birthday player. It doesn't seem like there was any more depth added to this game mode than that. Unused item qualities. There are 3 unused item qualities that could be found in the game files. Rarity 2, which is mentioned as customized, and would have had this brown color. Rarity 3, which is mentioned as well-designed and artisan, and would have had this other brown color. And then there's a completed quality that has the same color as unusual quality. Leaked source code also mentioned another variant called self-made customized that would have likely been a mix of the unused customized quality and the existing self-made quality. Another item quality was Tobor A, which was only added for a short amount of time. The use of it is also unknown. What these unused qualities were meant to do in general is unknown. U/Mancoman. This entry is about a pretty dark topic, so feel free to skip it. It does have a happy ending though. 12 years ago, a user going by Mancoman posted on the TF2 Reddit to raffle off his backpack. But the text accompanying it said, "Here's the story. I recently made a bad decision in my choices. I made an incredibly rude joke to a female friend and I've only been getting harassed by a friend of mine. I feel like I might not be around much long due to myself, so I might raffle off my backpack. Nothing more can be said. It's been fun." Which obviously alarmed users. The comments encouraged him that things will turn out fine in the end and offered their support. In the end, Mancoman said that due to all the support he put himself together and managed to explain the situation to his girlfriend, who then got back together with him. And so thanks to the commenters, crisis was averted. Always know that there's someone out there willing to listen to you, and that you may save someone's life by taking some time to be nice to them. Mancoman is now suspended on Reddit, so I can't really offer any update. Hope he's doing well. Unused sentry model. Likely referring to an interview Shawk did with Greg Broadmoor, someone from Wetter Workshop who worked on the Groutboard sets. Greg went on to show him some unused assets, including this sentry gun. Man, imagine how fire this would have been in the game. Valentine's Day restricted items. From February 13th to 15th, the message of the day is changed to "Welcome and enjoy Valentine's Day," which uses the same code as other holidays, which could thus allow for items to use this as a base to be restricted to this event. And it seems like at some point this was planned. There is an unused holiday combination called Halloween or Full Moon or Valentine's that would allow items to be used on any of those 3 events. This never got used though. Unique MVM Mercs death sounds. There is code found in the 2020 leak that hints at there being unique death sounds for every Merc specifically made for MVM. Currently they simply play their regular death sounds, and we don't know what these alternate sounds sound like. Pyroland Flower Spy. This is another rare case where I have no idea what this is supposed to refer to.
Gaben's Metal Lathe. This entry refers to a metal lathe that says Newell 1962. Newell, of course, being Gabe Newell, and 1962 being the year he was born in. This prop was used in the Engineer Update teaser trailer. You can see him working on it here. Of course, you can't see the front of it, and the only way people found out was from the recent SFM leak, which included a build of SFM from 2012 and this custom-made prop from the teaser trailer.
Monoculus as a MVM boss. There is code found in the 2020 leak that references a bonus round event that would spawn Monoculus. This code was found in a manager file, otherwise only used for MVM, but also contains some raid mode remnants. It is possible that Monoculus was meant to appear in raid mode or in MVM. Perhaps for Wave 666. Raid mode is a bit more unlikely since Monoculus was only added in October 2011, the earliest code that actually refers to MVM dating back to May 2011, meaning that the raid game mode concept was likely a thing of the past at this point. Teleporter explosion damage feature. In the same leak, there is code hinting at the idea that the teleporter would do a tiny bit of damage when exploding. Unsplit equalizers still exist. This is an unsupported theory. The old equalizer is not found in the code anymore, and so this is impossible. It is unlikely that any backpack still references the old one in any way. Crafted stock weapons. Apparently for some time in 2015, you could craft stock weapons. These would then be unique. There exist quite a few of these and there isn't much demand. So if you want to get your hands on one, you likely won't pay more than $30 or so. TF Logic Gasworks. This is an obsolete entity found in TF2. It is used to detect a Gasworks map, whatever that may mean. These can be found in some of the leaked maps in the repo leak. Engineer's unused C-Arms revolver animations. The Engineer's arms feature some unused animations for a revolver. Perfect opportunity for someone to make a reskin for the Engineer's pistol and make it a revolver. Robin Walker's 3 Islanders. Robin Walker's inventory is public, and it is super fun to snoop around in. He owns 3 different Islanders. These are otherwise normal weapons, but they have an unusual effect each, those being flying bits, Particle 1 and Invalid Particle. Schwaben Charger 9000 in TF2 is free to play. The Schwaben Charger 9000 is a scrap weapon for the medic. Most interesting about it is that it's featured in the video that announced that TF2 went free to play. Crafted something special for someone special. This entry is referring to there being a crafted something special for someone special, which should not be possible, and I can't find proof of it either.
Unreachable ammo and medkit on Coal Town. Yeah, I mean, what more do you want me to say? If you want to look for it, it's behind the lone medium ammo pack on the top right path.
Painted Vita Sauce. Similar to the Cow Mangler, there was a brief time where you could paint Vita Sauce. These are just as rare as Cow Manglers, but not quite as cool. I mean, one's a laser rocket launcher and one's a shitty medic melee. I'm also unable to find any images of it in-game, or any info on if the paint actually affects the look of the weapon. Unused higher poly ambassador model. Before being removed in 2009, the game files featured a high poly model of the ambassador. Why this exists is unknown. It's possible that the high poly model was made first before being optimized to reduce its load on rendering.
Unused spy Polaroids. In Meet the Spy, several comprising pictures of the Red Spy and Blue Scout's mother were shown off. As is common with many design assets, the Polaroids taken of Spy and Scout's mom's saucy date had mock-ups originally used as placeholders. These hilarious Photoshop images depict Spy slapdashed onto numerous flirtatious situations with different women, both real and fictional. It's obvious these were never meant to be seen and were simply being used as inspiration and placeholder assets. In the same batch, you can see the finalized photos used in Meet the Spy. My personal favorite is Cargo Shorts Beachwalking Spy.
Heavy's original voice actor. This is another case where I'm unable to find anything regarding this entry. He does have a different voice in Team Fortress Classic, like every other class as well, but I can't find any info on who did those voice lines. In TF2, it seems that the only casted voice for the Heavy has always been Gary Schwartz. Remove Disguise Kit textures. The Disguise Kit was originally gonna have a blue version, the textures of which are referenced in the files. This blue version can be found in Source Filmmaker and is seen in the Meet the Spy video. The blue version merely changes the color of a button and the cigarettes. Level 50 map stamp upgrade to premium. This is a glitched item that actually exists. It has no icon, it's classified as a map stamp instead of a tool, and its origins are unknown, and what it would do on use is also unknown. Sniper and Scout did not see the real Heaven. The Sniper briefly died in the comics and saw Heaven, and so did Scout. Both their visions are very different though. The Sniper saw his parents, and his dad suddenly accepted his mercenary job, something he never did before. The Scout's version of Heaven was a bit more chaotic and lively, and also had Tom Jones show up, which the Scout was not supposed to see. The theory I subscribe to is that the Sniper was only hallucinating, while what the Scout saw was real. Unused Pyromancer's mask horns. This pyro cosmetic features the model for an alternate style that features straight horns. It goes unused though.
The Special Crate. Apparently, there is a backpack icon for a crate that's called the Special Crate. It's this gray-looking box with gold chains around it and a lock holding them in place. But other than that, there isn't much known about it. It's presumed that Valve planned to use it for a special occasion, event, or update, but to this day, this item remains unused. What's so special about it? What sort of stuff was going to be in it? I guess we may never know.
Mecha Rex Discord recordings, not safe for work. This was originally the very final entry, but it's just another case of a depressing low point of the TF2 community, so I moved it up a little. Another case of a TF2 tuber turning out to, allegedly, like kids in the worst way possible and texting with them inappropriately. From the title of this entry, it seems like there may be audio or even video recordings of him, but I hope you can understand that I did not want to go looking for those. The short circuit could destroy the world. Searching for this, I can only find a deleted Reddit post where a random comment knows that the short circuit could destroy the world and a list of bullet points about it. This doesn't seem to be based on anything. Flag-based invade game mode. The intelligence item entity includes a setting to set it to invade mode, which is a substyle of capture the flag, where there is one neutral flag that both teams have to capture. It is somewhat similar to special delivery in that way, but this exact mode has never been used in any official map. We made it. Before you leave, give me another minute. I just gave you 3 hours of content, so you owe me this. I want to first off give a shout out to every creator that joined me in this video, and tell you about the channel in one sentence. Jcox98 is a criminally underrated YouTuber who does deep, actual analyses of video games and their themes, not just summaries. Linify does video essays, mostly delving into untold stories or analyzing specific little things. Lambda Generation is a must sub if you're a fan of Valve games, especially if you want to stay up to date. Radiation Hazard does some dark and gritty videos on all things Half-Life. Lamwalk makes really high quality video essays about any game you can think of. NoClick makes varied content on mostly Valve games, looking at mods, Easter eggs, and anything else really. Skyman does some of the best TF2 content out there. Videos appear infrequently, but if they do, it's like Christmas. Goldeck does some awesome Source Engine content with lots of cats. What more do I need to say? Consider subscribing to all these awesome people. Another shoutout also goes to BaconOfDominaton for creating this iceberg. So if you had fun, please consider subscribing or even becoming a channel member. Also join the Discord. All kinds of links are in the description, including this plate if you want to get yourself a high quality metallic TF2 poster and support me that way. Let me know if you want another part of this, or what you think of me doing TF2 content in general. And otherwise, thank you for watching.